This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Many, Mickey, Fishy!
You are listening to the Voices of Wrestling podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
X out and go listen to some boring podcast where they're afraid of their own shadow. Okay? Don't listen to Joe Lanza, because Joe Lanza's not changing.
And Rich Craich.
I like him. Who delivers this guy in a big spot?
Joe, don't yell at me. I like him.
In the big spot, who delivers better than this guy?
Stop yelling at me. I agree.
All right, welcome once again to the Voice of Wrestling Flagship channel. I'm Rich Craich, alongside, as always, King of Banter and a very good family man, Mr. Joe Lanza. Joe, what's up?
I like Captain Craich working from home. Get these shows done at a nice reasonable
yeah,
hour in the afternoon.
A little 1 p.m., get this all wrapped up. You got the whole night to do nothing. Baseball opening days today, man. You can go sit back and watch some games from a few years ago, I guess. That's what Emily Network, I think, is showing, like, quote, opening day, right? They're just showing, like, games from other opening days, I believe, right now.
Well, no, the gimmick is MLB Network, ESPN, and then all of the MLB YouTube channels. Because for some reason, like AEW, they have 19 different YouTube channels, which immediately makes me lose interest in all of their YouTube channels if I have to go searching around for whichever one I need to get to see what I need to see. But they're showing one game from each team wall to wall today on one of those outlets. But it's not necessarily an opening day game.
Okay,
some of them are
game. Yeah, it's just
some of them are opening day games, but some of them are like just like for the Pirates. I remember that one off the top of my head. It's the 2013 wild card game because it was their return to the playoffs after 22 years or whatever.
Okay, is that the Cueto game? Or was
That's
that
the Cueto game.
Oh, nice, awesome. That's a fun game. Sorry, not for you. For me, I enjoyed it, but maybe not for you. But
well, you see, Rich, it was 7 years ago. I'm kind of over it, so there's no, you're not like turning the knife in my back here, but yeah, that's the Cueto game. So anyway, they're picking one game for each team. The Reds have the lamest one. The Reds game is last year's opening day game. Like,
what happened during that game? Is there anything significant about that one, or?
Just a comeback win, Derek Dietrich hit a pinch hit 3-run homer in the 8th or whatever. A nice little game. But, geez, everybody else's are like Game 6 of the 2016 World Series. Or,
right, yours is like Derek Dietrich. He's a guy. Yeah, he plays baseball.
This Hall of Famer throws a no-hitter. Like,
right, the White Sox, I think, is the Burley perfect game, right?
I believe it is, yeah. And that's like a legendary White Sox game, And that Pirates wild card game is a legendary Pirates game. And then we get the opening day game from last year where a bench player hits a pinch hit home run off the bench, which, was exciting in real time. But anyway, the point
what are they going
to
show, the 1990 World Series championship? Or what are they going to show for you guys? They want something in HD, so what are they going to get in HD that's good Reds content?
If vintage, okay, if you're doing recent vintage, I have the perfect game, and that is the Jay Bruce walk-off to clinch the division in 2010.
I do remember that. Okay. All right. That's fine. You can do that one.
Jay Bruce walk-off against the Astros 2010 at home, and that was a significant game for Reds fans because they hadn't seen the playoffs since 1995, and division clincher, and that group of Reds, Bruce, Votto, like you mentioned, Cueto, that was they had a nice little run there, and that was their first playoff team, and that's a big game in Reds history in its recent vintage. So look at that. I had an answer for you.
There it is.
Didn't even
nice.
prepare for this segment.
Yeah, I thought I was going to school you on, like, you guys have nothing new that's good, but that's a good one. So,
but I will not be watching any of this because to me it's just depressing. I have no interest in watching a fake opening day. It's this is honestly hitting me pretty hard. Forget all the death, Rich. This is hitting me very hard. But I'm just being honest.
Yeah,
like
right.
This is like I've been someone who hasn't been, because I don't hate being isolated in the house. I kind of like it, to be honest. And I'm not, someone who's natural inclination is to panic about the situation or anything. And I'm just kind of chilling out and hanging out. But today, honestly, is a pretty hard day. I mean, I love the baseball. I don't miss an inning of a Reds game. I don't. And this is hard because it would be on right this second. It would be on. And this is what I do for 6 months out of the year. It's an important part of my life. So this is actually where maybe kind of some of the reality of this just surreal situation is starting to sink in. Eventually the thing is going to touch all of us. We're all going to know somebody who gets the thing. A lot of us are going to know somebody who dies from the thing. I mean, that's an inevitability. You know what I mean? And it's like, it hasn't really reached, in America that point. Yeah, I don't know anybody who's had the thing. You're a little closer to it because you got the wife working in the hospital or whatever.
We know a lot of people that have the thing now. So.
Yeah, but eventually it's going to hit all of us.
Right,
I mean, it's just
for sure.
You have to accept that reality. It's like there's other things, like two other things. Like you're told, when you're young, eventually at some point in your life, you're going to end up in court. There's just no way around it. Everybody ends up at court at some point. And eventually at some point in your life, there's a good chance you're going to lose somebody to cancer. Those are like inevitability. Like this is added to that list. You're going to be touched by this in some way at some point, But, it's been like 2-3 weeks here in this country where it's really been serious business. And honestly, something like losing opening day is where it's really sinking in for me for the first time that like this is not that it's not serious or dangerous because I've been locking myself in my house and just doing what I'm told like everybody else, but you see what I'm getting at here. It's like it feels more real today to me than it has yet, that my life has been seriously disrupted. I haven't changed my pants in like 16 days.
Right, but that's not really like that much different from what you normally do. Yeah, right. Like this now today finally is disrupted your normal cycle because, and we'll talk about it too. Like there has been wrestling, like the idea that oh god, there's gonna be no more wrestling. There's been wrestling. Like we'll talk about it. Maybe not next week, maybe not the week after. But there's been wrestling, and in some cases there's been a lot of wrestling. Like there's been a lot of stuff to watch and new promotions that we've had to watch or adjust to or whatever. But it's been there. I mean, weekly WWE TV is still there. AEW TV is still there for you. Japanese wrestling is still there for you. Some American indies are still there from you. Europe, or Australia specifically, they're still running and doing sort of stuff. So you're able to kind of fill the gap there. So that's not really changed. Your wrestling viewing hasn't changed all that much. It just looks a little different and feels a little bit different. You don't really change your pants or leave the house anyway, so you're good anyway. It's, you're normal, but now finally your normal has been disrupted. Like my normal has been disrupted for a while now because like I'm working from home. I got the nurse going into the fucking war zone every single night or whatever. So like my life has been adjusted for a week or so. So like to me, I'm already well past that point that you're at, but I know now exactly what you feel like because now finally something is coming up where you're like, wait a minute, this is weird now. This is and it's a hard thing to really quantify or really put an exact description to. It just feels different. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, it's just icky. There's something weird about it. Where you're like, I want to do something and I can't, or it's not there for me, or it's something's just different. And we're habitual creatures. Like we get used to that sort of stuff, and that's your habit from late March until August, September is baseball, and that's disrupted now.
Hey, you got to remember, like my wife works in a bank. She's going to be, aside from your wife, she'll be the last person told to go home. They're closing banks, so it's like my home life hasn't been all that different, because my wife still goes to work every day. I'm doing my work every day, but it's not like I don't have the kind of job where I was waking up at the same time every day in the morning and leaving the house every day. A lot of days I didn't leave the house to do my job. And the kids, she's still taking them off to their grandparents' house 3 days a week or whatever because they never leave the house. So it's not like they're in danger over there. You know what I mean? Because it's like they just stay at home anyway. So the kids are still gone. Like nothing about my home life has changed. It's like it was only when the kids were gone those 3 days, that's when I'd work from home. When I had to watch the kids on the other 2 days. You see what I'm saying? So that's the only thing that's really changed. But the baseball is a big change. And like you said, with the wrestling, okay, there's been a lot of wrestling. Like, there's been so much wrestling that I'm afraid we can't get to every topic we want to get to today. That's pretty crazy, all things considered.
There's a show that I had all intentions of watching this week that I ran out of time to watch.
You didn't get to the EPW show, and I didn't get to the Game Changer shows. There's been so much wrestling that neither one of us were able to watch everything we intended to watch, and we're home all of the time. So it's like there has been plenty of wrestling. Oddly, that's like the one like hobby or endeavor or activity that hasn't really stopped dead in its tracks. That's going to stop very soon.
Right. We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
But even last week, there was a topic that we wanted to talk about that we never got to with the Wrestle Talk show.
Right. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it's like, we intended to talk about that and we watched it, but we just didn't get around to it. There's been wrestling. Look, your favorite promotion might not be running. Look, if you're a New Japan fan, you haven't had New Japan. Okay, that's one of the places that hasn't been running. WWE, AEW has not stopped. Mexico didn't stop until last week. They're all stopping now, but there were a ton of Japanese promotions that had not stopped. That's all going to change shortly. So that'll be another instance where it really sinks in for me when there's a possibility there'll be no wrestling to watch soon. I think WWE and AEW are really playing with fire, and I think eventually there's a good chance they might get shut down as well. We'll see about that. But, Rich, in Japan, I mean, Dragon Gate just canceled 3 shows. Big Japan has canceled because they finally had their hand forced by a government agency. And they were one of the ones that just were running with fans and didn't give a flying fuck about any of this. And Noah canceled the show as far out as May.
Right.
So Puro is really going to dry up, and that's because in Japan, I think, look, we talked about this last week. We felt like, I don't know, they're getting a little too brave here. Bringing fans back into buildings and taking people's temps before they come in the door, to me, was a little like, look, you either got to stay shut down or open back up completely. The half-measure stuff was a red flag. And it's come back to bite them because now Tokyo's seeing more cases. Tokyo's shutting everything down. Mm-hmm. And Japan just got too brave. And I think that's a good template for some of the West to follow, not just in terms of wrestling, but in terms of everything. It's like Asia has always been, several weeks ahead with all of this than everybody else has. And, it's we don't want to turn this into a non-wrestling show, but it's like, don't get too brave with this thing if you see it subside. That just means what you're doing is working.
Right, exactly. Good. Yeah, and that's the next, and it's going to happen in America too, that we're going to see this, we have what we have now, and Japan really kind of had, to a lesser extent, when all the shows started getting canceled for a little bit, and there was a few no-fan shows or whatever, and then it was like, okay, things are kind of stabilizing, let's bring people back, let's slowly but surely do, and that's going to happen here in America in the next week or two. It's going to become an inevitable thing where people are like, all right, look, the cases are kind of down, or like, the hospitals are kind of opening up or whatever, let's maybe, start having some people come back to work and right when you do that, it's going to spike back right up again. And then what we're seeing in Japan, where it's like, okay, never mind, hold on, let's get back to where we were and let this thing sustain for a little bit longer, and not, at the first sign of sunlight, not immediately just go run to the sun. Like, realize that, okay, it's going to be a little bit, we're going to need to, when we start feeling good, like, you got to wait a few weeks even after that, and then you'll start finally maybe knowing that you can get back to some semblance of normalcy. But yeah, Japan, it all seemed all so quick that we're like, 2 weeks out from like ground zero, the worst it's been, and we're already, letting fans back in buildings, was kind of, to me, and we talked about it last week, like, I thought it was playing with fire, and I don't know, there's the theory that a lot of it was based off, trying to show the Olympics that, hey, no, we're good, we're back to normal, but once the IOC said, okay, you know what, we're not going to do this thing this year, then Japan said, okay, actually, you know what, we probably shouldn't be doing what we're doing here, and now they've kind of reeled things back in a bit, so, I mean, it was dangerous. It was, there was that, I think, the interesting story there's that K1 event. I forget where it was at, but like a bunch of people tested positive for there, or one guy tested positive, and you had 5,000 fans in a building or whatever. And that's just, that is, you don't want to be doing that. That's playing with a lot of fire.
Yeah, because now if in 14 days you could have hundreds of people that were there who come up with the thing. And many others who just never show symptoms and don't think they have the thing, but they have the thing.
Yeah, and spreading it to all their friends and family and coworkers and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, so it's like, like you said, that's we saw them screw up. So hopefully you don't follow the same path. No matter, we have listeners all over the world. Whatever country you're in, you just hope that wherever you live, you don't do what Japan just did. That was dopey, and we were very skeptical of it last week. And the other thing is Japan, really, the government never really shut things down, which is why places like Big Japan were able to just snub their nose at it and keep going.
Right.
Because no one told them they had to stop. Now people are telling these, Tokyo is telling people you have to stop. And wherever Big Japan was running, I forget where it was, they told them, look, you cannot run. Because Big Japan would have run if they could.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, and look, there's a good chance we're going to, I said this a couple weeks ago, we may lose a few of these Japanese promotions. Yeah. I mean, people should brace for that. These ones that felt like they had to run Big Japan and 0-1 and everything, and for their survival, I mean, they may not survive this. I mean, it's very...
Yeah, like the idea that they were running not because they wanted to put their fans in danger. They were running because they needed to run.
Yeah,
it's simplistic, but like a lot of people, like you said, I don't think a lot of people wrap their heads around that the reason these companies are running and the reasons why they're trying like hell to brave through it and just say whatever, who cares, like, because they're gonna die, and they know that the second they shut down for 2 months, they're a hand-to-mouth business and they're done. I mean,
there's a reason New Japan hasn't run a single match,
right? Because they don't need to.
Not running a match, So these promotions with the stronger financial backing, I mean, New Japan's going to be fine, and Dragon Gate's going to be fine, and Stardom is going to be fine because, they've got the financial backing and the stability. DDT, okay, they're going to be fine. But your Big Japans and your 0-1s, like you just said, man. I mean, they're running out of survival, and they were going to run until someone in the government told them they couldn't. And now it's just a matter of, how long can they go without bringing any money in, And it's not just wrestling. I mean, it's all kinds of businesses that are dealing with that. I mean, I said it last week, and I've survived another week, but I'm waiting for my phone call any day now to tell me that, I don't have a job because we're not bringing any money in. And in my business, we don't bring any money in, It's just every day there are more losses piling up. So, what are you going to do? Except wait around and see what happens. But, I think we'll lose some Pearl promotions. It'll start with the smallest and work its way up the longer it goes. That's unfortunate, but I think people need to brace for that as a reality. I think independent promotions will be fine because it's the wrestlers that are in trouble.
Right. Most American indies, and I think the difference between American indies and pro companies are your run of the mill insert whatever American indie. The overhead it's one guy that basically just fronts the money or whatever. There's no office talent there. There might be a few people that help this guy out or whatever, but largely it's this one guy's financial stake or whatever that is the entire company. Like whether it be a GCW with Brett Lauderdale or whatever, it's just like one dude who just kind of fronts the money and runs the company or whatever like that. Whereas most pro companies, they do have quote unquote office employees. Like wrestlers are office. There's overhead. There's a lot more stuff to it than just one dude who just decides, hey, I'm going to run shows every month or so.
It's show to show with these indies. It's just I'm going to run a show next month, and right now they're just not running. They all have 99% of these guys have other jobs, and this is just like running their little indie companies as a hobby. Not all of them, but most of them they do something else. They just do they do indie wrestling out of love, and most of these shows, or a lot of these shows, or some of these shows, depending on what promotion you're talking about, lose money anyway. But they don't care. It's you might. Your hobby, maybe you like to drink and you go out and drink 3 nights a week, and their hobby is they like to fucking run wrestling shows. So they don't care if they lose a couple $100 or $1,000 here or there running a wrestling show. Okay. So it's like, they just won't run. And then when they're able to run, they'll run again. So it's not like indies are going to fold. It's not the same scenario. The problem here is the indie wrestler who has worked and grinded and built a name and was able to quit their fucking 9 to 5, and they're supporting themselves in indie wrestling, and they're not by any means getting rich. And 1 or 2 weekends of not having bookings is devastating, let alone the months and months they're going to go, which is why these promotions were running these empty arena sort of benefit shows where fans were sending donations, or the wrestlers had a chance to hawk their merchandise or whatever. That Game Changer show that you just watched, I guess, was along those lines. It's like, but eventually they're not going to be able to do those anymore either.
Right,
and it's
right.
not.
We should. Go ahead.
No, and the only other thing I was going to say is it's not like they could just get back into the workforce because nobody's hiring right now.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that a lot of these wrestlers that aren't full-time, like the full-time wrestlers are just taking an absolute fucking bloodbath right now because they're not running, they're not doing their weekend stuff. But even the ones that do your weekend warriors that, take off on Friday, half days or whatever, but otherwise, work 9 to 5 jobs if they can. I mean, those guys aren't doing well either because their 9 to 5 probably is cutting their hours or cutting their salary or full on so they just everyone's kind of taking a beating here, but wrestlers in particular because they're not getting whatever job they have is probably not a very lucrative huge job if they decide on the weekends, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go wrestle. Like they might work at an office, they might work at a call, whatever they're gonna do, whatever they do, there's a good chance that job's not supplementing either. So yeah, it's just an absolute. I mean, anybody in any artist too. Like I'm doing a Patreon series with Wikiphase / Adam or whatever on the WCW Spring Breaks, and he had a whole tour planned. He had a bunch of merch that he got for the tour. That's all gone now. He's not making any money touring. That's how he makes all of his money, is touring and selling merch. So now he's doing and a lot of the companies are doing this too, or a lot of the bands are doing this too, where they're doing live streams on Instagram or live streams on YouTube where they can at least try to get to their fans and try to say, hey, I'm doing a show with the intention of, hey, look, I have merchandise, hey, buy my albums, you gotta if you want to support wrestling at this point, you gotta directly support the people that do it, because that's the only way to really support it right now, especially indie wrestling. Like these companies are not going to run for a while, and if they are going to run, it's just going to be these fanless shows or whatever. So yeah, it's you gotta do direct, to buy shirts, do that sort of stuff, donate, whatever. But they're taking a beating, man. It's the industry in general is just, it's such a hand to mouth, week by week, month by month, show by show industry, and we're seeing how loose that can be when something like this happens.
Yeah, but we already talked about a lot of the sweeping cancellations in Japan, and nothing's really happening in the U.S. outside of AEW and WWE running their weekly TV, and in both cases taping ahead. Last week we kind of buried AEW for not taping ahead. Basically because they were very tight-lipped about it, and we just assumed that they weren't taping ahead. But after talking to people in the office there, I mean, they're definitely taping ahead. I mean, they didn't come flat out and confirm it with us, but in so many words, they're taping ahead. And I'm watching Dynamite last night. Were you thinking, is this really live?
It wasn't. You can tell it wasn't live. The segment we're going to talk about at the end, the Matt Hardy Chris Jericho segment, was not live. It was obvious it wasn't. Yeah. Because there was cuts. It was camera cuts as they were trying to do the quote unquote magic tricks or whatever. So it wasn't live. It 100% was not live because they couldn't have replicated what they did live. So yeah, no, yeah. The entire time I could kind of tell everything seemed pretty perfect. Yeah, no, it was definitely taped. It was 100% taped, regardless of the quote unquote live, stinger in the left there, the live little graphic in the left. It absolutely was not live.
I mean, even outside of that, I mean, after the conversation we had, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, how much of this is live? How much of this isn't live? They're just not shouting to the world that they're taping stuff ahead. I mean, we know of one match for sure that has at least one match that has been taped that hasn't aired yet because, someone may have accidentally told us, but it's like, and I don't think we're speaking out of school. I mean, it wasn't like it was off the record. I mean, we straight up asked Tony Khan and he said, well, why are you assuming I haven't taped anything? And then at that moment, the light bulb went on. I'm like, oh, of course they are. Why wouldn't they have been? We just talked last week.
Well, I said that. I mentioned that last week. You had sort of said, well, why would they say they weren't? And I was like, well, why wouldn't they be taping though? It just made no sense.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to bring up. We had that whole conversation and we're like, well, everyone was there. Why would you bring everyone there and not use most of them? It doesn't make any sense. And, of course, and it made such little sense that we should have been just smarter about it. Of course they've been taping ahead. So who knows how much they have? They could have taped from sunup to fucking, deep into the night last Wednesday for all we know. And who knows what they did this Wednesday? It's very cloak and dagger, and if they want to keep all of that, under their, under a cloak of darkness and not let everybody know exactly what they're doing. I mean, that's fine. I don't necessarily see what you gain from it or what the big deal is to let people know, hey, we're taping ahead. But that's it. If that's the way they want to handle it, that's fine. But the larger point is, outside of AEW and WWE, no one else is doing anything. I mean, I just went over it behind the paywall, the other secondary promotions, and when they're going to be out of stuff. And, ROH is already out of stuff. And Impact has till mid-April, and MLW has until about May. MLW got lucky because they snuck in that Mexico taping.
Right.
Right before Mexico shut down. So they've got like an extra month on everybody else of footage. NWA has stuff, but he doesn't want to use it. He's got stuff, but it all builds towards the pay-per-view. So he just doesn't want to use it. And he's trying to figure out if he can rework some of it, maybe do some new commentary or whatever. So the last 2 weeks, they have aired their pay-per-views. They aired the anniversary show last week, and they aired the pop-up show from Nashville, whatever Crimson's promotion is, that tried and true. Where does he run? Wherever he runs that from.
Yeah, I think Nashville, but let me make sure so people don't.
Because that was that pop-up show. Remember last year that
yeah.
And they ran that this past week. That had the Josephus versus Arquette, hair versus hair, and Nick Aldis versus James Storm were the top 2 matches. But yeah, so we don't know what they're going to do. They're just stalling for time at this point to figure out whether they could use the footage they have or not. But once those places run out of footage, they don't have the advantages of Vince McMahon and Tony Khan, where they own their own building somewhere that they can just run with impunity until the government says you can't. When they're out of footage, they're out of footage. So what do you think? I haven't seen any of the episodes yet, but what do you think of the ROH strategy of using the old archives finally, which they've been doing on YouTube a little more? Mm-hmm. And that you've been sort of talking about behind the paywall, patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. But what do you think of them incorporating that into their weekly TV? Because I know you saw the same correspondence I did from an ROH source. Got to be mysterious with that.
Yeah.
What do you think of that strategy? Because I think that's pretty smart in other circumstances.
No, I absolutely think it's smart. I'm not a big fan of ROH's TV normally. Right now, it's like a little disjointed, a little weird anyway. So it's like, to me, it's not that big of a difference because I don't really, like I said, I don't really love what they're doing. But no, I think using the old archives is a great option for them. Is they can, if you can get some guy in front of whether it's Ian or whoever in front of a video saying, okay, we're here this week on Ring of Honor, and we're going to go back to the archives and look at, I think there's a way that you can do it to make it look, there's a lazy way to do it where you just show old, you know what I mean? You show old matches and that's it. It's just here's 2 old matches and that's it. That's our hour of TV or whatever. And I think if you put a little glean on it, a little touch where, yeah, you have a stand up, you maybe have, a promo package or 2 building up to whatever you're going to do, at least something to break it up, some sort of new content with the old content or an introduction to the old content. Or what you're going to watch here is, a match featuring, the CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, who both wrestled at Ring of Honor years ago. And it's from our archives and that sort of stuff. And you can watch the action of Ring of Honor at Ring of Honor. There's ways to do it that I think you can do it pretty slickly, but I think it's a great idea. I think it's way better than going dark. And it's way better to me than showing more recent stuff. You could just say, hey, let's go show the 2019 Best in the World or whatever. And to me, that's kind of hokey. I don't like that stuff. And that's why I was going to mention, going back to what baseball's doing right now, showing a lot of more recent games and that sort of stuff. To me, I like the approach that NBA TV is doing, or MLB Network was doing before today, where instead of showing games from last year, they were just showing really old shit. Because it's all right, look, you don't want to see last year's opening day. It's too fresh, too normal. Why would you want to watch this? What would possess you to want to watch the 2009 a game from earlier this season or whatever in the NBA?
And what are you learning from that?
Right,
you just watch that stuff. Why do I want to watch LeBron? I've watched every LeBron. They're all fresh in my mind, so I totally get what you're saying.
And that's from the same aspect of Raw. When Raw's hey, here's the Royal Rumble. I'm I just fucking watched the Royal Rumble a month ago. Yeah. Why would I want to watch this again?
Well, okay. In WWE's case, though, I'll give them a pass, though, because they're still building towards stuff like WrestleMania.
Right. For sure.
That's a little different. But you're totally nailing it with the sports stuff because, okay, I listened to Chris Russo on Sirius, and obviously sports hosts are just begging for something to talk about. He's going back and watching old NBA games, but he's watching NBA games from the 70s and 80s. And he's for the same reason you just said. What the heck's he going to go watch a fucking LeBron James finals game from last year for? He just saw it. So he's watching these old games, and then he's learning a little something from it. Like, I'll give you a great example.
I'll point out here that LeBron missed the playoffs last year, but anyway, go ahead.
You'll get the idea. So,
just joking.
So he is learning things, and the listeners are learning things because he either doesn't remember or he forgot the old NBA rule where if you went over the foul, where if you put the other team into the bonus and you weren't in the bonus yet, they got 3 shots.
3 shots, yeah, and the ball I thought too, even, which was like, oh god,
three shots, and this is a 60-year-old man who lived through it, but he just forgot because it's been so long. So that was a great conversation. And the other thing was, if there was when the NBA first rolled out the 3-point line, if you got fouled on a 3-point shot attempt, you only got 2 shots. That's something else that a lot of people have forgotten about because they changed the rules so quickly. But, it's little things like that. And it's also, watching Larry Bird or Kareem or whoever play in real time in their prime, not just in highlight form, but the actual tape, the whole game. The not just the highlights, but the failings as well. What they did well, what they didn't do well, what made them so great. So I'm totally with you on that. I have no interest in a game from last year.
Right.
I have no interest in a game from 5 years ago. Give me the old stuff.
Right. And that's the way I see as far as like Ring of Honor. Like, yeah, you could just replay a show, whatever show you showed January 15th or whatever, the week of January 15th or whatever. But like, that just seems like real hokey and lazy and kind of like, like that's not going to do anything. But if you say, hey, look, we're going into our archives. We have never really done this before. There's a reason now to watch that. There are people, and that's the reason why I did the ROH, their 18th anniversary, they released those collections, and I'm previewing them on patreon.com/voice of wrestling as well. And the reason why when I started the series, I said, you know what, guys, I'm not going to do spoilers. I'm going to introduce the match. I'm going to talk about the match. I'm going to give you the previews. I'm going to let you know what both guys were doing at the time before this match started. And then I'm going to let you watch the match because I assume a lot of you have not seen CM Punk versus Roderick Strong from 2005. And I wanted to see what the feedback was going to be on that, of me doing spoiler free. And it was like 100% across the board of people being like, oh yeah, I've never seen that match. Oh yeah, I didn't even know Roderick Strong was, challenging for, CM Punk in 2005. And it's like, all right, cool. There you go. Ring of Honor has this archive that they have never really done much with. They've done very, very little with. So to me, that's the best. I mean, that makes that a must-watch show every single week. If they're going to start dipping into those archives and showing matches they've never even shown before, or, giving you some background on, hey, here's when, you might see Roderick Strong on other television shows right now, but he was, in Ring of Honor, and here's what he, like, there's a way where you could really do some great stuff with this, where you do profile pieces on guys, and they could be current guys in Ring of Honor now, you tell the backstories of the current guys, or they could be past ones, where you say, hey, yeah, you see, Bryan Danielson every single week on other television, but yeah, he cut his teeth here, and this is what he did, and here's some of his highlights, and here's some of his big matches. That's the stuff that's going to attract me. So if Ring of Honor does do that and puts the resources into it, I think that's a way, way better option than just replaying shit, or even honestly taping ahead with no crowd, because I'm starting to kind of feel a little, not necessarily burnt out by the no crowds, but some companies can pull it off and some companies can't. And I'm not sure about Ring of Honor and how well that would come across on Ring of Honor, particularly when they don't have, like you said, they don't have a building to do it in. AEW, you don't even notice because they're in Daly's place, and there's fireworks, and there's pyro, and there's lights, and all this sort of stuff. So it's like, you know what? Who cares? There's no crowd, but I'm still enjoying this. A Ring of Honor in a warehouse, wrestling with no crowd and a guy doing a voiceover, that's going to get kind of boring pretty quickly as well. So I think dipping into the old footage, I think is a fantastic idea for Ring of Honor.
Okay, so I've got it on now. And it's the episode that they told us about last week where they said they're going to roll out this new strategy with an episode focused around the Briscoes. And I'm fast forwarding through it very quickly, and this really seems cool as hell. It opens up with a tour of the chicken farm.
Okay, interested.
I don't know if that was shot new or if that was something they've gotten their coffers, you know what I mean? But it starts off with a tour of the chicken farm, and then they show Briscoes versus Steen Erico in full.
Oh,
I don't know which match because I know they had several, but because I'm just fast forwarding through. So then there's a Briscoes Steen Erico match which goes through several commercial breaks. Then they come back.
What does the building look like? Because that might be the one. If that's the one in Chicago, you can see young Rich Craich nearly break his wrist.
Maybe I'll go back and see if I could identify it. But then when that ends, there's like a sit down interview with both of the Briscoes sitting on the ring apron.
Okay.
And what they're doing, I don't have the sound on, but I could tell you what they're talking about. They're speaking as you're being shown highlights of all of their various singles matches they've had. The first one in like 2003, then one during the HD Net era, And then that segment closes with a full match with Jay defending the world title against Mark from this era. So that looks really cool, where they're kind of talking about wrestling each other, all of the various times that they've wrestled each other in Ring of Honor. And then they close out the segment by showing you the world title match that they had against one another. So let's fast forward past this and see what they end the show with, because we're only a half hour in. The show's actually on right now, and I caught up to the live viewing.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool.
that's the end of that. But let me see if I can figure out which.
That's a good approach.
Jericho.
That's a benefit that Ring of Honor has that NWA wouldn't have, or some other companies wouldn't have without a ton of history. So that's cool.
Yeah, so right there we can see that this is a pretty cool format. I got to be honest, I'm going to go back and watch this.
Yeah, I don't know if I get Ring of Honor yet, but I can find ways to see it. So
this looks interesting.
They're trying to get into Chicago, but
and we should note that they did tell us that they taped some empty arena stuff in Vegas because they were out there for the pay-per-view, and then the pay-per-view just never ended up happening. But they had everybody there, so they ended up taping some empty arena stuff in Vegas that they claim they were happy with, but I guess they're saving it for a rainy day, which actually isn't the worst idea
No,
either.
Yeah, do this stuff as long as you can, but if this becomes a thing where, hey, we can't get anybody to come in and edit, or we got to be completely shut down and nobody can come to the office or whatever, then you throw on some of the arena shit, I guess. No, that's cool.
Yeah, and maybe you hold that empty arena stuff until you're ready to get back to business, and then that gets people back into your storylines and whatnot. Instead of burning that stuff off now, and then in 3 months it's out of sight, out of mind. Okay, so in this match here, the Briscoes are coming in as the champions. I don't know if that helps you or doesn't help you.
Yeah, let me do a quick little.
This is...
watch my misery of my wrist nearly breaking.
This is bald-headed era Briscoe. Well, obviously it's Steen Erico. Chicago Ridge. There you go.
Oh, hey, there you go. All right, so you can. So what happens is the spot if you want to see.
Here you go. It's driven from June 23rd, 2007.
I think that would have been it. Yeah.
So you get that full match that goes through a couple commercials. Then you get them talking about their singles matches through the years and walking you through that, which I guess takes you into their world title match that they had a couple years ago. And then this actually, I have 2 different copies of this because it recorded in the middle of the night too. I get Ring of Honor like 19 times. So
I think, you know what? I think that happened with me and I deleted it. So maybe I need to go back and,
so let me see what else they have on here.
I'm absolutely at that show. Yeah, that's 100% the way. It's a great show, by the way, too. For people who have not seen that in a while. Main event is Danielson and McGuinness. I've always told you that one. That's the one where I was peeing and Nigel McGuinness was like, mind if I pee real quick, boys? And like there was a guy like ready to come and he like came in and he like moved somebody out of the way, peed, and then washed his hands, walked out, and then you hear his music and he just comes out like 2 seconds later. It was great.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just saw that guy. He looks like the biggest badass in the world, but I'm like, that's like indie wrestling at its perfect. Is that like they need to share a bathroom with you, and then 4 seconds later this guy comes out, he's going for the title, or he's gonna be the #1 contender. He's knocking heads off. Yeah, it's Danielson and McGuinness in the main event. Morishima versus Jimmy Rave. Then Briscoes, Generico, and Steen. So yeah, that's for sure the one where I nearly broke my wrist. So that's cool.
Okay, so that singles match for the world title takes you through the rest of the show because it's about a half hour long. So that's a cool little show. That's not a bad solution for what we've got going on here. And like you said, they are much better positioned to put together TV like that than like MLW would be. Or I guess Impact could do it. Impact could do a nice little job.
Oh, for sure.
Stuff like
yeah, absolutely. Impact's archives are. We always say it's like it's the hidden gems of, and we're even guilty of it too. We have a Patreon. We do retro stuff, and for some reason, I never think to go back and watch stuff on Impact. But yeah, they have years upon years upon years of really good stuff too that people haven't dove into yet. And yeah, they could do exactly the pieces with people that are currently in Impact, or they could say, hey, AJ Styles, here's what he did for us before, you saw him in the other places. There's a lot they could do there.
Might be time for at Billy and Lagana to dig up them Houston tapes that they bought a few years ago, huh?
Right. Billy bought a bunch of like crappy old like Chicago 1930s wrestling, I believe, too. So maybe you can start dusting off those Gorgeous George tapes.
Listen, times are going to get tough. But
am I right that he did that? I think he went on like a buying spree where he bought Like a lot of the old like Capital Wrestling shit. I want to say there was something that he bought. It was like really weird, and there was no reason for him to buy it.
I think so, but the thing about it is, I mean, if I had the means, I'd probably be buying up any old wrestling I get my hands on too.
For sure.
You know, because eventually you can flip that to McMahon. But yeah, I mean, I guess MLW has the 2003 stuff if they really wanted to, if they had to get desperate. You know, the old Steve Corino footage.
Little Kojima, little strongest arm there. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I guess the overall point here is, you know, these last couple weeks I've been expecting the wrestling to dry up, and it hasn't. But now that's becoming more of a reality where it's about to happen. So I don't know. Maybe it's good that we weren't able to get to the Wrestle Talk show last week, and maybe it's good that something might get chopped today. It won't be Dragon Gate. We can't do it to Dragon Gate again, can we? I mean, we've got to.
No. We're talking Dragon Gate today for sure.
But maybe it's good that some stuff that we're still somehow running out of time, because then we could talk about it then. I mean, you know, in a couple of weeks, we're going to need stuff to talk about. I haven't watched that Pro Wrestling Masters show from Japan from a few weeks ago. I got that one on the back burner. So, and I guess there'll be, you know, WrestleMania, I would assume, is either completely taped or almost fully taped. We'll have that to talk about.
I'm not sure.
I don't
know if I could do WrestleMania.
You know, we have to.
We have to. I know, but it's like just the thought.
This is a good transition, though.
Yeah, it
because
is.
This is something you brought up off the air, and it's your topic. So you are struggling with WWE's no fan shows way more than you are. You've seen no fan shows now from AEW, Dragon Gate, I guess, but they kind of use the AEW model of having the other wrestlers at ringside.
Yeah, and GCW kind of had the same thing too. There was just a bunch of like the guys when they were done would just go and sit, you know.
Yeah, but last night's AEW was a true empty arena, and you've seen some other empty arena shows from around the world now. But for whatever reason, you are struggling with WWE's brand of empty arena, even with the new camera angles. So why is that?
I think one of the big reasons, I was kind of trying to talk it through because I was talking with a buddy the other day. It was like, hey, have you watched like NXT lately, or you watched SmackDown lately? And I was like, yeah, I have, but the it like physically pains me to watch them because I think they're doing, I don't want to say they're doing a bad, I mean, it's hard to do a good job with empty arena. It's tough. It's a very difficult thing to do. The one thing they did, thankfully, is they changed the camera angle. They got it away from just showing empty rows of empty chairs and got it to the AEW model where you see the hard cam as the screen and the entranceway or whatever, which is way more exciting and a much better idea. So kudos to them on doing that and adjusting, you know, their format, which they just do not do. They are very much against adjusting formats. The problem that I have with WWE, you know, no fan shows is, and we touched on it briefly last week, is that it feels like they want you, the viewer, to not think that there's no one there, or they want you to give the perception that no one's there. I'm not saying that they're pretending that there are fans there, but they're just like, they're wrestling like there's fans there. Does that make sense? Like the way that the cadence of the promos that we talked about, the entrances, the way the wrestlers are sort of positioning themselves, the way they're, you know, getting into the ring, the way the announcers are talking, the way the promos are sort of directed to, everything is still kind of being directed to this audience that's not there, and it's dependent on the audience that's not there. And we talked about it again, like briefly last week, but like WWE style is so dependent on hitting the right points at the right time to get the crowd to react the way you want them to react. That's what they teach, is you do this and the crowd does this. You do this, the crowd does that. It's so unorganic, and it's very much like, do this because the crowd will react this way, and this is the way we wrestle, and this is why we do that. And you see it in principle when they're wrestling in front of no audiences, and you see them desperately trying to get the, you know, their sort of style of wrestling, their format of wrestling. They're still doing it the same. The format of their promos, everything's still the same, but it just can't be the same. You know, that you just can't do that. Like AEW, I'll give them a lot of credit for what they've done, is they've really eliminated like the in-ring promos. There's nobody talking anymore, except for the final segment, which we'll talk about. But everything else is being done either backstage or being done in like a vignette format. You're not getting a guy coming out and cutting a promo anymore, because they realize how dopey that looks. It just looks weird. There's no crowd. What are you doing? You can just do that backstage, or you can just do it in vignette format. WWE is not quite doing that because they're so dependent on it. That's so much what their business model is, that you're seeing shows where it's like the guys come out and they're holding microphones and talking to each other. You have the Edge thing, like you were saying, which was just excruciating to get through, that Edge promo. It was a fine. It was fine. Whatever. I know people are really love it. Or like Orton's promo on Raw this week. A very good promo, but it's excruciating to to listen to because there's like pauses and there's like a cadence to his voice and all that sort of stuff is dependent on the crowd going yeah or boo or reacting or whatever, and they're not doing that and they're not reacting. But these guys are sort of still acting like there's a crowd there, and you know NXT the same way. The style of wrestling is still being sort of wrestled like you're waiting for a crowd to react a certain way, or you're waiting to go to a commercial break, or you're waiting for someone to say something. And it's just, for whatever reason, it's like physically hard to watch these WWE empty arena shows. And the idea that like WrestleMania now, I got to watch 2 straight days of 3 straight hours or whatever of that, it's just tough. I think the most glaring example for me, and the one that really was like, all right, you know, I need a little bit of distance here, was the SmackDown with Gronk. I really wanted to watch that. I was like, all right, let me see what's going to happen here. Joe, was there any segment that's more excruciating, oh my God, I hope nobody doesn't walk in the room, than Gronk coming out, dancing, gyrating, Mojo Rawley dancing, Michael Cole being like, yeah, it's Gronk or whatever, and there's no one there?
It's, the last thing we needed was 2 Mojo Rawleys.
We got it.
I mean, you know, I think that would have bombed with fans, to be fair. It's just bad in all sorts of ways.
Well, it's like the lack of awareness, I think, is the biggest thing to me. Yeah. It's awkward. WWE makes it awkward because it's like, do you guys know there's no fans here, right? Like you can, whereas I think AEW has done a pretty good job of it, or these other companies have done a good job of straight up addressing, hey, there's no fans here, we know it, there's people outside of the ring or whatever, but let's just kind of have fun with it, let's still have a show. WWE's not doing that. Like you said, they're trying to kind of bull through it a little bit and say, no, we're doing our show, we're going to do our thing, and we're not going to address the fact that there's nobody here. And it's like an awareness factor. Like they don't seem self-aware about it quite yet. Whereas I think every other company has done a good job of saying, look, we know there's no fans here. I mean, like even in the Jericho promo with Matt Hardy, which we'll talk about here in a bit at the end of Dynamite, Jericho is like, who are you talking to, man? There's no one here. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing all this stuff? There's no one here. It's just you and me in the ring here. And I like that. I like the idea that you just make it obvious to people. Make it, you know, be aware of the fact that you're doing this and it's kind of goofy and it's kind of weird. And it's kind of, but like WWE isn't doing that. They're kind of acting like it's business as usual for the most part, but it's just not. It's just not. And there's an awkwardness to watching it.
Let me be clear. None of this empty arena stuff is good. Some of it is good by empty arena standards, but all of it is bad and awkward and weird. I can't sit here and say that I've genuinely liked any of the empty arena wrestling except when measured against other empty arena wrestling. Wrestling does not work in this setting. What's happening, though, is I'm getting so used to the empty arena wrestling that it's starting not to feel weird anymore. And it's only been a couple of weeks, which is another thing. But you spent a lot of time articulating why the WWE empty arena isn't working. I'm not going to spend any time articulating that. All I know is I watched Dynamite last night, and then I immediately watched NXT. Both of them had empty arena. Neither one of them had fans at ringside. Both were shot with the exact same camera angles. And for whatever reason, one that I cannot put my finger on or explain, NXT felt like exponentially more dry, boring, dead, lifeless, bizarre, all of those things. And I don't know why. I have no clue why. There's just something about the way I can't explain it. But I totally get what you're saying because I get the same feeling when I watch Raw and SmackDown. And I don't necessarily get that same feeling watching Dynamite. I watch Dynamite and it's weird and it's a little spooky, but I'm able to get into the show. You know, and NXT didn't do a bunch of in-ring promos or anything. They did one with Keith Lee and then one at the end. And the one at the end was actually really good. It was just match after match after match. And it was the tight camera angles that Dynamite has been using because we thought that they would be too proud to copy AEW, but they haven't been. They immediately copied AEW as soon as Dynamite aired the first week, which was smart. But it just feels it feels more lifeless for some reason and soulless. And maybe it's because of the reasons you said. Because they just can't break away from the house style in any way. And their house style is just not conducive to this. And that's probably the reason. But I agree with you. It's a hard watch. And WrestleMania is going to be a hard watch, but it's going to be so fascinating that I honestly can't wait for it.
It's a study in pro wrestling. Yeah, this is like a historic study here of like taking all that WrestleMania is, which, and we've talked about it in recent years as well. WrestleMania is not a good wrestling show anymore. It stopped being a good wrestling show years and years and years ago. It became a sideshow, a spectacle, an event, a moment, or whatever. It became that. It ceased to become a very good wrestling show a couple years ago, and it became whatever the hell it is right now. You might have some good wrestling matches on it, but it's not a good wrestling show anymore.
When's the last time it was good? I think recent years I've either come away from it thinking that was not a good show and I want the hours of my life back, or there were maybe one or two where I was like, yeah, it was all right, but way too fucking long.
What was the one in Santa Clara? I want to say 31. I want to say I enjoyed. Was that Santa Clara?
Was Brock and Roman.
Yeah, and then Orton and Seth was really good too.
That one was okay, I guess. I don't know. I'd have to be looking
Triple
at
H.
it.
Yeah, that one's not bad. I'm looking at it right now. It had Taker Wyatt. Oh boy, ugh. Gross.
I don't even remember that match.
Don't.
Honestly.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
But yeah, your point stands. I mean, WrestleMania hasn't been a good show in a long time. It's a spectacle, and I haven't even gone into it in recent years hoping for a good show. I've gone into it just sitting back and expecting a spectacle. And I think that's the best way really to approach modern WrestleManias. But I think the point you're trying to make is you can't have a spectacle in an empty performance center.
Or will you? That's what I mean. Like, that's the fascinating part. Will they? Will there be 5,000 pyro, things going off, and then a live performer doing, God, America the Beautiful or whatever, and like, people doing concerts, and the New Day throwing out pancakes? Like, can they adjust what WrestleMania is that much?
I don't think they're going to bring in outsiders, but I do think the rest of that stuff they're going to attempt. Yeah,
and that's what's going to be the fascinating part about it.
And it's going to fall on its face and look utterly ridiculous, and that's why I'm looking forward to it. And I know they're going to try a bunch of bells and whistles. Like Cena and Bray Wyatt is going to basically be a mini movie. They're not going to get in the ring and do an exchange side headlocks. It's going to kind of be like that Bray Wyatt Randy Orton thing in the fucking empty house. Remember that nonsense?
Oh, I do. Oh yeah.
I mean, it'll be something like that. And I think that they'll get creative with some of the other matches too, because they can't. I think that they know that they can't give people 2 straight days of Rhea Ripley doing an arm drag in an empty building. They can't. I mean, it's going to be a disaster. So they're going to get creative in every way that they're able to get creative. So I'm looking forward to it. There's no way I'm going to I'm not going in with a closed mind, but based on what we've seen and based on the fact that I already don't really like the company very much and I'm not invested in the company, and based on the way they've presented their wrestling to this point, I don't see any way I'm going to come away from it thinking, wow, I really enjoyed that. But I could easily come away with it thinking that was so fun bad that just fucking I've had a smile on my face for 2 days because this was so atrociously awful that it delved past the line into fun bad. That absolutely can happen.
Right, and that's a big reason why I went last week in our discussion about, like, should you do WrestleMania now? Should you call it something different? To me, I would care if I'm that company and I'm Vince McMahon or I'm whatever. I care so much about the brand name of WrestleMania that I don't want whatever is going to happen in 2 weeks from now to be attached to that brand, to be attached to WrestleMania forever. Is that there will always be this sort of crimson letter on, or scarlet letter on this, crimson letter. We were talking about crimson earlier for the wrestler, right? That's why.
Yeah.
Anyway, scarlet letter is like, you're always going to remember that one fucking horrendous WrestleMania in front of no crowd. You know what I mean? Like that you can't escape that lineage. When you go through the years and talk about the years of WrestleMania, oh yeah, when there's WrestleMania 34 and then this happened during that, and then oh yeah, there was the WrestleMania, there was no crowd and it was really terrible and it was really like, to me, I wouldn't sully the brand that way. If you want to blow these things off and call us whatever, call it WrestleFest or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, just call it something else. But the idea that you've sunk almost 40 years into WrestleMania and now you're going to just throw this show on here, It's just gonna be this thing that's kind of weird and clunky or whatever. I hate it. I hate this idea of it. And like you said, I am fully expecting it to be fun bad, to be just utterly ridiculous and just like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. And if it reaches that point, then at least it'll be somewhat entertaining. It'll be fun to watch or whatever. The downside of that, though, is from that company standpoint, is that you now have branded that, labeled it, stamped it. That is WrestleMania. That is a part of the WrestleMania lineage forever. And if I'm them, that's not a risk I want to take. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I want my WrestleMania to be. And yeah, there's the bravado of, oh, well, we didn't cancel, we didn't do that sort of stuff. But I mean, what % chance is it that this show is like super entertaining and really good? I mean, come on, honestly, let's think about what they've done so far, what they produced so far. Do you honestly believe that people are going to sit down and in earnest be like, that was hell, Joe, that was a great show. I'm really glad I watched that WrestleMania. I mean, come on, the percent is going to be very low to that. It's just not going to be. We know it. It's under all the circumstances, it'd be a minor miracle for it to be that way. And that, to me, I wouldn't solely the WrestleMania name that way, because it is going to be that. It's going to be fun bad. It's going to be kind of a disaster. And I think they're going to kind of get laughed at more, and they're going to get, like, Vince we know what Vince wants. We know what WWE wants. They want the bravado and the advertisement and all this sort of stuff. Oh, they didn't let WrestleMania stop for nobody. It will go on no matter what or whatever. But I really do think that more people are just going to probably point and laugh at it when it's done.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, you've seen segments from Raw and SmackDown and stuff. They've gone viral over the last few weeks because people are just laughing at it. Like, look how goofy these guys look. Look how stupid this is.
Yeah.
You know, the Stone Cold thing with Byron Saxton, that started blowing up into other weird ways. The John Cena Bray Wyatt thing was blowing up in different ways. Outside of the wrestling universe, there people are looking at this and going, this is the goofiest fucking shit I've ever seen. And now you're getting Gronk in there. So now you're going to have, what they want is the mainstream appeal. Hey, look, here's football star Rob Gronkowski. But there he is, gyrating and dancing when there's no one in the audience. And it's just going to look weird, right?
Yes.
And
agree.
They're going to get pointed and laughed at. I mean, I know that's not what they want, but it's like you said, fascinating show when it comes up. Like, I don't want to watch it, but I know I'm going to watch it because it's going to be a study of pro wrestling. It's going to be a study of just like, it's going to be history in the making, no matter what it's going to be. But man, ugh.
Yeah. Get ready. It's all we're going to have to talk about for like 3 straight weeks.
I know.
So I guess we should talk about Dynamite. There will be no Thursday TV reviews this week for subscribers, patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. Basically, we've been doing the Flagship when I record that show. So it kind of is taking over that time slot. Plus, the ratings aren't all that relevant. I'm not someone who's completely hand-waving the ratings. I don't think they're completely unimportant. But it's kind of harder to break the ratings down, and that's a big part of the Thursday TV reviews. So, from that perspective, there's not as much juice there when it comes to the ratings. And, and last week we ended up talking a lot about, the Dynamite in the empty building anyway. So it felt redundant for me to then do a Thursday TV reviews later that night or the next day or whatever. So I'm going to handle it the same way this week, because Rich and I are going to talk in depth about Dynamite. And then, I'm going to run through NXT since he didn't watch it yet. But yeah, so Dynamite. I guess, we need to talk about this closing segment with Matt Hardy. And I guess just to sum up my feelings on it is, look, I'm not mad. I'm not going to sit here and yell and scream. I know that's probably what people want. I'm disappointed. I'm like a parent that's disappointed in their kid. Not mad, but disappointed.
Which is worse, by the way.
Which is way worse. And, and people can call it an overreaction if they want. And that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion of my opinion here. But if they continue down this road where Matt Hardy is a literal wizard with magical powers, it sucks a lot of the enthusiasm out of AEW for me personally. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching the shows. It doesn't mean I'm going to, totally give up on it. But it does mean that I'm far less into them as a promotion. And it totally removes all the enthusiasm I have for them as a promotion, because that is not something that I have ever enjoyed in my wrestling. And I am nothing if not consistent. Did I not totally hand-wave Lucha Underground because of that stuff? Yes or no?
Yes.
Did I?
The receipts are there, by the way, for anybody who wants to go back.
Yeah. Did I not rip Broken Hardy the first time around in Impact 4 years ago?
They did, and I think a lot of people will be surprised by that. But go back into the archives. You and I said that while mildly enjoyable, maybe in the moment, that it's a bad idea. It's kind of. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. So put a pin in this because I do want to talk about the Impact Broken Hardy versus this Broken Hardy in a bit, though. But yeah, at the same time, we said, okay, this is fun and good or whatever the hell it's going to be, but what's the long term ramifications of this? And then when the ratings came out and there was no movement and nothing was really happening, and we were like, okay, well, everyone's saying, oh, this is the biggest thing in wrestling, but it wasn't drawing any money and it wasn't getting any more people to buy or watch Impact. So, what worth was it? So no, and from a content standpoint, no, you were not into the Broken Hardy stuff in the beginning.
In real time, that was a very unpopular take from this show, that the Broken Hardy stuff was stupid. And it was very unpopular when we suggested that it wouldn't have a long shelf life. It popped one rating and had monstrous diminishing returns from there. We studied it every week, Rich, because we were pounding that one because we were the only ones making that argument. And we were attacked from all sides, and we turned out to be right. So have I not buried The Fiend from day one?
Oh, yes.
Have I ever, in the 8 years we've been doing this show, anytime it has come up, claimed that I was ever an Undertaker fan?
You have not. You've more than anything just gotten mad at me for me being an 11-year-old enjoying the Undertaker, which is fair. But
not even. I mean, look, I get why 11-year-olds enjoy the Undertaker, which kind of plays into this. It's like, but I, if nothing else, have been nothing but consistent when it comes to this stuff.
Right. You don't want monsters, magic, goofy guys, deaths, monsters eating people. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no interest in Jeff Cobb eating his opponents in Lucha Underground, or Drago being a literal dragon, or fucking The Fiend. I have always been consistent in that. I didn't even like The Undertaker when I was a kid. I was grumpy as a child. I didn't even like that shit. I thought it was stupid. I hated that 1994 Royal Rumble.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
Yeah, you just want the Killer Bees and the Hart Foundation to have a really good, solid 18-minute TV wrestling match. That's all Joe Lanz ever wanted.
Yeah, I mean, for that's all I've ever wanted. And for some reason, the first thing that people revert to, if you bury something in wrestling that just goes beyond the limits of suspension of disbelief, is, well, what about the dead zombie man? You're okay with that? No, I'm not. And
also,
I never have been.
Not to interrupt.
Fucking Undertaker. and it was 1990. 1990. Okay? So maybe when someone was 10 years old in 1990, they were okay with The Undertaker. That person's 40 now. And maybe they're not okay with The Undertaker now. You ever think about that? And it was 1990. Time and place matters. Time and place matters. If Broken Matt Hardy was in Lucha Underground, Rich, we wouldn't be doing this rant today.
Right, the universe matters a lot. We're going to talk a lot about wrestling universes here in a little bit, for sure.
And here's the thing. I could make the choice not to watch Lucha Underground because I already know what that universe is, and I don't like it. And by the way, neither did anybody else because nobody watched it. Okay? So stick that in your pipe and smoke it too. It failed because it stinks, because people don't like that shit. Okay? And here's another thing. I lost my train of thought.
Well, I was going to say here real quick. I'll let you.
I'm yell and screaming. I'm yelling and screaming.
One sec. Let me give one thing. I do enjoy that, regardless if you like The Undertaker or not or anything. The idea that people go back to that, forgetting that along the way of The Undertaker, before and after, during 1990, 10 years before that, 10 years after that, 20 years after that, the list of supernatural characters that arrived and died and went away and never got heard from again, or abject disasters, or have wrestle crap entries or whatever, the list is endless, and there's one guy that emerged, The Undertaker. Like, people always bring that one up as if he is not, he's the outlier. The Undertaker is the outlier. The zombie dead mortician guy is the outlier of supernatural characters in pro wrestling history. Very few have achieved what he achieved. He somehow broke through. He somehow was able to do whatever, regardless of how it happened or whatever. But bringing him up is it's just a logical fallacy, because, like, okay, in that year alone, you have Oz. Where the fuck did Oz go? You know what I mean? Oz went away. He went away. You know, in 1990 had the Gobbledygooker and Oz and all his bullshit. And Papa Shango was a few years after that. And all these, like, there are a litany of guys that arrived and disappeared and now are WrestleCap entries that are supernatural characters. So bring up the Undertaker it's just not. I mean, you picked out the one guy that actually emerged that was that style that actually stood the test of time. The one.
My blood pressure's up. I can't.
Don't do that. You don't want to do that. Come on.
I wasn't going. I didn't even.
The hospitals are crowded, man. They don't have time they don't have time to deal with your shit. So
I didn't want to yell and scream about this, but I'm so tired of this fucking Undertaker comparison. I don't even like the Undertaker. I've never liked the Undertaker. Hey, here, for everybody. The Undertaker fucking sucks too. Okay? How many times do I have to say it?
That is a Joe Lanza opinion, by the way. I like the Undertaker still, but that's all right.
Yeah, but has that not always been my opinion?
It's always been your stance. Yeah, it's fine.
How is that not consistent? I've never when have I ever liked this fucking spooky bullshit? Now listen, and listen, in all seriousness, we've talked about this a million times. If you came to pro wrestling through comic books or through video games and you enjoy Lucha Underground or Chikara, I get it. There's wrestling out there for everyone. I just don't watch it or talk about it.
Right. And unfortunately, all your companies are out of business too, but that's all right. But go on.
But it's like, no, I'm not even, I already took my shot. I'm not going to take shots anymore. My point here is there is wrestling for everyone. And I totally get why someone who enjoys wrestling for those aspects of it would enjoy something like Lucha Underground or Chikara or Broken Matt Hardy or fucking Undertaker shooting lightning bolts from his fingers or any of that bullshit. I get it. But why is it not okay that that's not for me? Why is it that these people always act like it's like I'm saying it's okay if you like that? I've never said you shouldn't like that stuff or it's killing the business or I've never gone down that road ever. I think there's room for all of this stuff in wrestling, but why is it if you express that you don't like that style of wrestling, people come at you like you're a horrible person? That part of it I don't understand. A lot of it is because of Jim Cornette. There's no question a lot of it is because of Jim Cornette. An unfortunate byproduct of Jim Cornette is because Jim Cornette is such a fucking asshole. Now, if you don't like something in wrestling, you automatically get compared to Jim Cornette. Rich, am I out here saying that Matt Hardy is going to kill the business? Am I out here saying that Matt Hardy should trip on the top rope and break his neck?
You're right. Do you want him to get run over by a car? Yeah, or some bullshit. Yeah, get out of here.
Jim Cornette said that he hopes Orange Cassidy splits his skull open and bleeds out and dies. I mean, don't compare that to Jim Cornette. Don't compare people to Jim Cornette because a fucking dirty wizard who does magic is too far for your suspension of disbelief is not analogous to Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette thinks doing too many high spots is killing the business. I mean, can we stop with that stuff? Stop comparing people to Jim Cornette. I think it's perfectly reasonable for someone to be put off by fucking wacky magic in pro wrestling. I don't think is that really beyond the pale?
It's really not. And what's going to be interesting too is later in the show for people that want receipts and immediate receipts or whatever, I'm going to put over a match that was absolutely goofy and silly, the social distance match, which Jim Cornette blew a fucking gasket about the other day. But it's all about the universe. It's all about the scene and the setting. And like you said, the time and the context is all that matters here. And a big reason why that, I watched the Matt Hardy thing today, and I kind of came away with similar thoughts to you and similar complaints, and I'll let you kind of have the floor when you talk about the stuff that really stood out to you. But what's the weirdest thing is that AEW for an hour and 45 minutes was this very realistic wrestling show that had some funny that had some vignettes that were a little over the top or whatever, but everybody was human beings, everybody was normal humans. They were a little weird, they might have their own little motivations or whatever, but the universe was that these are men that are wrestling, that are doing, you know what I mean? Like we know the established AEW universe, and then you have a guy who can transport and meditate and or levitate, not meditate, transport and has magic and is that sort of, and it's like, all right, well, then what do I think? What do you think of the other stuff? Like what's the, how do I then take all the other stuff seriously if now all of a sudden there's a guy that can do magic in this company? What's the universe now? What am I supposed to believe? Like what? And that's important. People might roll their eyes at that and say, oh, who cares, right? That sort of stuff. But that's the thing that we're saying. Lucha Underground, I don't have to like it, but at least I understand that's their universe, is that Matanza can eat people. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to watch it anymore, but that's their universe. The universe of AEW has not been that so far, regardless of what the Dark Order's been, which has been a lot of bullshit and a lot of annoying stuff. At the end of the day, there was never like, now you're getting into the mystical. Now you're getting into a man that can literally bend time and move without, movement and transport from one scene to the other and all this sort of, and that is like, okay, now what are we doing here? What's going on now? And I don't even have a criticism of his promo. Like, well, we'll talk about that. There's some stuff that I didn't love about the promo and love about that. But everything after he gets to the ring is like, whatever. It's annoying but like the levitating, the appearing out of nowhere, that sort of stuff, that is a bridge too far for me as well, because it's like, okay, what is this universe now then? What are we doing here? Because if this is what it's going to be, if we got an hour and 50 minutes of dudes trying to prove that they're better and want to win championships, and then there's now a scary, crazy magician guy there, like, what are we doing now?
You nailed it right there. And honestly, while I have no use for Matt Hardy, and I've been consistent in that as well, I have no use for Matt Hardy, but I advocated for AEW to bring him in. I've done it behind the paywall. I don't recall if I've done it on this show because we really haven't talked about it on this show. I've done it on Twitter. I've done it in many places. Just because it's not for me, I recognize that it's probably smart business to hire him and bring him in and use him. And while I have no use for his promo style or his character, okay, you nailed something in what you just said there, which is the essence of the problem for me. Where it goes beyond the pale and crosses the line for me is when he starts doing magic. That is what I cannot accept. That is where you completely lose me. When your pro wrestlers start doing magic, that crosses my personal line of kayfabe. I cannot do it. And you will lose me. And if he is a prominent character and continues to be a wizard, like Chris Jericho said he was, during that horrible closing segment, where Chris Jericho's on his back and he goes, "Wow, you really are a wizard." Rich, could you cringe any harder? I mean, this guy's doing magic tricks. That's where you lose me. I can live with the goofy promos. I can live with the goofy character. I don't have to like it, but I can live with it because I don't have to love everything on the show. I don't love everything on the show. Who's been a harsher critic of the Dark Order than we have? Okay? And oddly, they turned the corner on that this week, and we're going to talk about that. But who's been a harsher critic of the Dark Order than we have? For many of the same reasons that we're a harsh critic of this. Mm-hmm. But where they lose me is when it becomes mystical and magical. That's where you lose me. If Matt Hardy was just this delusional guy who was a crazy man who thinks that he's a wizard.
Yeah, and put a pin in that, because I do want to follow up, but finish your point.
Yeah, if he's just some crazy guy who's lost in his own reality, I can deal with it. But once he literally starts doing magic and starts teleporting, that is at the point where last night I literally threw my hands at the screen and said, I can't do this. This is not for me. And I don't understand why it's such an awful take for that not to be. Look, there's all kinds of wrestling. That kind of wrestling is not for me and never, ever will be. And it'd be one thing if it was in its own universe like you've laid out. Then I could ignore the whole universe. And I did. I didn't watch Lucha Underground. I stopped watching Chikara. That shit wasn't for me. If it was for you, great. Okay? And I'm not sitting here advocating for everything to be rings or fucking Shuto or Pancrase. You know that's not me. I can deal with some silliness. I cannot deal with magical powers. And I've been consistent with that since I was fucking 10 years old. I didn't like it. I don't like it now because I didn't come to wrestling through comic books or video games. I came to wrestling through sports. And we've talked about this a million times. You come to wrestling from different places. If you come to it through sports, this kind of stuff's going to turn you off. And I am disappointed in AEW. I can't believe Tony Khan put this on his TV. I cannot believe that he will push forward and continue and allow it on his TV moving forward. He has to know it was a mistake. I'd be very disappointed if not. Because the magic and the mysticism and all this bullshit does not fit the tone of the rest of the promotion. Mm-hmm. You can't give me win-loss records and rankings and people getting title shots based off of that and personal
Kenny Omega
growth.
talking about how he wants the gold on his, or Cody and Kenny talking about the gold on their match graphics that lets you know that they're a champion and everybody wants that because it lets you know you're a champion.
You can't have all
that was 20
of that.
minutes before that, before
That's
we had
right.
a guy teleporting. Yeah,
you can't have Cody doing fucking territory shit because he loved you can't have all of that on the show and then have Matt Hardy doing magic tricks. It does not work. You have to figure out what you are.
And by the way, not to interrupt, but it would be the same on TV shows as well. You know, if you're watching ER and all of a sudden fucking George Clooney, teleports to another room, it'd be like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, get out of here.
And a valid argument for that would not be, well, you liked Charmed, so
right,
how come you don't like it
right.
when George Clooney fucking waves a magic wand? Because it's a different fucking universe, dummy. That's, again, I'm telling you right now, anyone who comes at me with that Undertaker shit is now blocked on fucking sight because you're stupid. You cannot be more stupid.
At Voices Wrestling, by the way, if you want to get blocked. So, at Voices Wrestling.
That automatically is a signal that you're a stupid, brain-dead human being if you come at me with that Undertaker argument. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to do the same bit, except I was going to use Sopranos or The Wire or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't ask me why I use ER of all the shows.
Hey, listen, ER is a good one. You brought up the Clooney. It might be a little dated. But could you imagine,
yeah.
Could you imagine if just in the middle of fucking season 3 of The Wire, if Omar all of a sudden was a mage and started fucking using magic to sell fucking drugs, and somebody actually defended it by saying, you know, that, well, you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I mean, it's fucking, that's what the Undertaker argument is. You fucking idiots. AEW does not have magic. If this were WWE, I'd still bury it. But I'd understand. I understand why they do The Fiend. Because they fucking suck. That's why. I'm disappointed by this. Because this company has not shown that they're going to do dumb shit like this. It doesn't fit their universe. I mean, for God's sake, come on with the Undertaker shit. I got to mute again. I got to walk around.
I'm enjoying this Omar as a mage thing. That's pretty fun. Season 3 of The Wire. But...
Omar coming with his magic wand. I mean, that's what we're doing here.
But just smoke goes up in the air. They're like, oh God. Like, plumes of fire come out of nowhere. Like, oh,
I mean, if Matt Hardy can fucking teleport, then what's the point of even having why doesn't he just teleport away when he's about to get hit with the fucking Judas effect? Why doesn't he just fucking magically just kill his opponent? I mean, this is what I'm saying with the magic.
The logic gaps. Now you've opened up a Pandora's box of like logic gaps that you can now decide that you want to make or whatever, and that's dangerous.
Just a bridge too far for me. And I'm telling you right now, I'll take it a step further. It's going to be a bridge too far for a lot of people. Those live AEW crowds will eat it up. I have full confidence in that. But here's the thing, Rich. They would eat it up without the fucking magic. You don't need him to be doing magic trick. All he has to do is get in there and say delete. That's the act.
Right, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. I wanted to put a pin in like the TNA comment earlier because honestly, TNA probably did it the best of anybody because they told the story of this man mentally breaking down. This man that they had seen for years and years, and that was just a normal guy. Mentally, he had a mental breakdown, and he became whatever Broken Matt Hardy was. And the original sort of Broken Matt Hardy vignettes or whatever was just a delusional maniac on his compound with a fucking drone or whatever. And that is fine. That is not a bridge too far. That is perfectly okay with me because we had the Brody Lee stuff this week is not necessarily mystical, but it's like it's over the top. But that's wrestling. Like no one's gonna ever complain about that because it's not he's not a human. Brody Lee is a human being. You know what I mean? Like the guys he was talking, he was just an over the top human being, and that's what Broken Matt Hardy when the original story got told. Was this is a guy that you're all aware of. You know who Matt Hardy is. He was perfectly normal. Now something broke in this man, and this is what he is. He's turned into this guy. And he's got his wife playing a piano, and he's got his gardener fucking around. He's inviting the Rock and Roll Express over to his house. But all that, none of that was otherworldly. All that stuff was just like, this is a man who's clearly lost his mind. And that's a fine story to tell. It's okay. I didn't love it at the time, but it was a fine story to tell. That was the story. Now you have Matt Hardy just dropping into AEW. The assumption is, oh, hey, it's Broken Matt Hardy. Hey, it's this guy without any context of why this man is broken down, why he's the way he is, what he, any of that sort of stuff. And if they're assuming, hey, who Broken Matt Hardy is, you're watching our show, that's fine. But you got to think of the people that watch, NBA and hear Marv Albert plug AEW and now tune in and see this guy. Like, imagine that fan and what they're thinking after watching this. That they were watching the fucking Pelicans and the Mavericks 2 weeks ago, and Marv Albert said, Chris Jericho at AEW this Thursday or whatever. So now they started watching AEW, and now they have this man with no context. Here's this guy that can teleport and do this sort of stuff, and is a magician and all, and whatever. again, it's without any context and without the story of this man mentally breaking down, and with him literally being a magician and literally being able to transport and teleport and that sort of stuff. That is where it's gone too far. If you want to tell, again, if the story is that Broken Matt Hardy had a mental breakdown and he's a weirdo and he talks weird and he says delete and he's kind of delusional, because they kind of did that in the promo. Honestly, Jericho tried to get to that story a lot. He goes, man, I don't know what you're doing here. I don't know what's wrong with you or whatever, but like, this is the real world. This is AEW. This is, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that Chris Jericho tried to at least get it somewhat to, okay, this is a guy in front of me that's Matt Hardy. I know who you are. Why are you acting this way? Which is fine. That's okay. I'm okay with that sort of stuff, if that's going to be the story with Matt Hardy. I don't love it. I don't have a ton of use for it, but that's the story. When you start doing that, I'm a magician and I can teleport and I can do this sort of stuff and I can do magic, and that's where it becomes, okay, this ceases to become Matt Hardy the human versus Chris Jericho the human, and now it's something altogether different. And the juxtaposition of Chris Jericho being this normal human being that says, I know who you are, I know what you're doing, what's wrong with you. Also, while this guy's teleport, it doesn't work. As we said, the universe, it doesn't work for it. It is The Wire. It is Omar becoming a mage. It's George Clooney healing somebody with his eyes, or you know what I mean? Like you lose that. You lose what the chain is, what it all is, and you break that chain and you open that Pandora's box of like, okay, what the hell is this? And you can tell the story of Broken Matt Hardy, absolutely. And they did it for 75% of the segment, but there was just those little things that happen in it that's like, okay, this is if this is what it's going to be, if it's going to be this direction, I'm the same as you. It's not like I'm going to stop watching AEW, but I'm definitely going to think less of the company because they allowed this on their TV.
House had a different reality than ER did, and they're both doctor shows. It's that's the key here. And some people liked House and some people liked ER. Maybe there were some people who liked both, but nobody wanted the doctor from House to show up on ER and start doing magic tricks. It's not unreasonable at all. And the problem here is this isn't the tone or the context of AEW, and if this is what they're going to be, then they're no different than Raw. And we had the same discussion about Dark Order. It's no different than Raw to me. And then at that point, that is why, circling all the way back to the top of the segment, I will lose my enthusiasm for AEW. Doesn't mean I'm just going to completely ignore it. No, because there's a lot of things about it I like. And those things won't change, but my enthusiasm for those things will. Because I know that looming over is not only this dopey wizard character, but the possibility that if they're okay with that, then they're okay with more of that moving forward. That's the other thing too. I will no longer trust AEW. Why am I going to invest and myself and get super invested in a promotion when at any moment, Bray Wyatt can get fired from WWE and moonwalk in as the Fiend? I'm not interested in that. I don't like that. And if you're willing to do Matt Hardy as a fucking wizard, then you're willing to do anything. You've changed the entire infrastructure of your own reality and your environment and your universe, and it's what I have never liked as a fan. So no, it doesn't mean I'm going to make some weird, emotionally immature decision to just hand wave the company entirely. Of course not. But am I going to be, super invested in it as much as I may have been before that segment? I have to be honest, Rich, I won't be. Mm-hmm. To me, it's just another dopey wrestling company that's blowing it and not delivering something different, because that's a lot of the same. That's a lot of the same. You're just, and it's such a shame, because I think the Dark Order pivot this week, and not even a pivot, this was probably the plan all along. And my plan was to do audio this week and totally eat shit and eat all of my words on the Dark Order and talk about how brilliant this has all come together, where now it appears that the Dark Order is just a dark version of what WWE represents in wrestling, right? And how Brody Lee is sort of this Vince McMahon-like figure, and it's not even subtle. They're not even trying to be subtle.
No, the steak, the sneeze, the suit jacket he was wearing, the color of the suit jacket, the tie, the toe of the tie,
everything. And last week he just directly referenced him. He said, you won't be the first fucking old washed up man who doesn't believe in me. And it's like, this is the whole essence of this is like a dark parody of WWE. Not parody. Parody is not the right word. Sort of a macabre vision of what WWE represents in the wrestling business as a whole. You're going to do that. And then an hour later, you're going to do WWE bullshit. Man, that's disappointing. It's so disappointing because the Dark Order stuff the last 2 weeks has been so brilliant to the point where they've managed to have me turn the corner on it. And it's the one thing in the company I really didn't like. And then an hour later, they just piss it all away with this nonsense. It's nonsense. Nonsense that, by the way, and I want to be nuanced here, it has never drawn money. It has been great for Matt Hardy's career. And I want to make that distinction. Matt Hardy completely reinvented himself, and he got himself booked in every indie in the country. He got himself a nice ROH run on top. He parlayed this character into a lucrative WWE contract for the last 3 years. But the gimmick itself, as we talked about at the top, one big number for Impact. Everybody watched that week, laughed at it, not with it, and then never watched Impact again.
Right. There was maybe the ROH weekend, if you want to credit the WrestleMania weekend show. If you want to give him some credit to that, that's fine too.
But here's the thing. Did that character draw that, or was it just the idea that now the Hardys were feuding?
The Hardys versus the Bucks.
ROH?
Yeah, right.
That, you know what I mean? So I'm not even, but you know what? I don't want to split hairs.
Give him that one. You can have that one too, guys. Yeah.
You can have that one too. And at the time, it was the biggest gate ROH ever drew. I will never dispute that this character is bad for Matt Hardy. What I will dispute is that it's a super popular gimmick that, look, it did nothing for Impact. And you can't even use the argument, well, nothing can do nothing for Impact. Well, here's the thing. It did for 1 week. It got a bunch of new eyeballs for 1 week, and those people didn't stick with it. If this was some transcendent, business-changing gimmick, people would have stuck with it. Am I right or am I off base here?
No, absolutely.
This is a thing that it's like, it's an SNL skit that runs too long, is what it is. And it's the same kind of diminishing returns. It's an SNL character getting over on the show, and then you make a movie and the movie bombs. You know what Matt Hardy is?
Are you going to say the ladies' man or?
Matt Hardy is It's Pat.
It's Pat.
That's what, yeah.
I was wondering if you're going to go ladies' man, Night at the Roxbury, or
hey, take your pick. Stuart Smalley. You know Stuart Smalley had a movie?
Right. No.
Yeah. Everyone remembers the Michael Jordan sketch because it's a classic. I mean, the whole idea that Michael Jordan, look, I don't have to explain it. It's fucking hilarious. Go YouTube it. Okay? But then you don't make a Stuart Smalley movie. You know, it's
Did Mango ever get a movie? I don't think so, right?
It's funny for 3 minutes.
Right.
It's not funny for 2 hours.
I can't believe there's a Stuart Smalley movie. Man. Is it bad?
You know?
How terrible is it? It's got to be really, really bad, right?
You can't do It's Pat. Oh, the wokes aren't going to like that one, Rich. You can't do It's Pat in 2020. I mean, that's a character.
Oh, no. Yeah, It's Pat is done.
It's Pat, forget it. It's Pat is canceled. Delete It's Pat. But fucking, that's what Broken Matt Hardy is. You know, it's a fucking 5-minute joke that he has wisely used to reinvigorate his career. Where would Matt Hardy be without that character? That's why you have to have some nuance here. I'll tell you where he wouldn't be on Dynamite this week. That's where he wouldn't be.
I mean, saved his career. He probably wouldn't be able to walk right now, given where his body was at, too. He's basically been able to do a few bumps a year now, just sit in the ring and play funny music and scream delete. So it's good for him, for sure.
Oh, the smartest thing he ever did was the delete thing in the crowd, because now every crowd wants to have fun and do the delete. And I'm not ripping the fans for that. It's fucking, you go to a show, you buy a ticket, you get drunk, you scream delete, and you wave your fucking arm. It's fun. That's fine. I stand back by the wall like a grump. You have fun. I advocate for fans all the time doing whatever they want in these fucking buildings. But it's like that was smart because it makes it look like this thing is more over than it is. And listen, if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. If Matt Hardy versus Chris Jericho does 2.5 million pay-per-view buys, You don't think I'll come on here and fucking admit I was about to come on here and admit I was wrong about the Dark Order.
Right, after saying that you will never turn the corner.
That I will never turn the corner on the Dark Order. And I was going to come on here and I had this whole bit planned where I make a jackass out of myself and I'm self-deprecating. Rich, you know the deal here. I do this fucking pompous act, but who's more self-deprecating than I am? We have fun here. And I was going to shit on myself for 45 minutes. I had a whole bit planned. That went out the window when Chris Jericho is calling Matt Hardy a wizard. I mean, what the fuck are we doing here? And you know the sad part is Chris Jericho fucking killed it up until that point. Listen.
Well, that's what I was saying. The entire promo, he's trying to reel things back into reality. Hey, you're Matt Hardy. I've known you for 30 years. I don't know what you're doing here, Matt. I don't know what's going on with you. I don't know what's wrong with you. But this is AEW, man, and I run this show. And so he every single time Matt Hardy would do is like, oh, the making of pain, and Chris would bring it right back every single time. And I was like, here we go. That's good. That's good. That's good. And then so you really are a magician. I was just like, fuck, damn it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Again, my one and only issue with the entire thing is that he did magic. I thought Chris Jericho told Chris Jericho told the drone. He called a drone a piece of shit. If you're not amused by that, I mean, then come on. And only Chris Jericho could pull that off. Rich, who else could pull that off? Cutting a promo on a drone, telling the drone he doesn't like his political views, and then calling a drone a piece of shit, and then
telling you, hey, you get back here when it starts flying away.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Get back here.
I was very amused by that, and Chris Jericho can pull that off. He has the right kind of energy to pull that off, and the whole segment would have been fine without the fucking magic. I can't deal with the teleporting. I can't deal with the creating fire up on the stage. I can't deal with it.
I forgot about that. I forgot he did that too. Yeah.
Yes. This is Monday Night Raw now. And I'm sorry, but that's the biggest insult you can throw at these guys. Because that's exactly what they do not want to be. But when they do shit like this, that's what they are. You're Monday Night Raw. You have a fucking, you know what you have? You have an SNL parody Undertaker on your roster. That's what you have. That's what Matt Hardy is. That's the hard truth if you continue down this path. So let me ask you, do they pivot away from sort of the mystical shit, or do you think they're going to lean into this?
I think they pivot away. Given what I have confidence that they pivot away.
And by the way, as we're now 12 hours removed from it as we record this on Thursday, the general consensus is that this sucked. Is that fair to say? People are burying this. It's not just us.
Yeah, other than the geeks in our mentions, yeah, pretty much every person that matters thought it was awkward and weird.
I mean, it's not like this is getting rave reviews and we're out on an island. We were out on an island with Matt Hardy the first time. We're not out on an island this time. I mean, and I think a lot of it the first time around was people didn't give a shit about Impact. You know what I mean? So it's like, who cares? But people kind of care about it. People feel like I do today. They're kind of fucking disappointed in this. Like, not it. Why is AEW doing this? I feel like AEW is above this. You know what I mean?
I thought they were. Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, you kind of have this feeling where you're like, oh, come on, guys. You're above this. You don't need to. You know what I mean? It's like, you're better than this. What's a worse thing to hear from someone than you're better than this? Mm-hmm. Doesn't that one always sting the most?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you ever have a woman be like, "Ugh, Rich, you're better than this," and you're just like, "Oh man,
jeez, you thought that highly of me."
Yeah. Her vagina is going to be dry for the rest. I forget it. It's over. You know, it's like it's the worst thing you could ever hear from a parent. You're better than this. You know, or someone at work. Like, it's just AEW. I'm here to tell you, Mid-South Tony, you're better than this. You're better than this. I got to bring back the Mid-South Tony, Rich. Is it unfair?
Good. Yeah, no, it's not. It's good.
It's Mid-South Tony. I mean, come on, buddy. You're better than this.
No, there's NWA Cody, too. The entire him on commentary, man. You can, if you don't know that what Cody Rhodes loves in wrestling, listening to him on commentary, he drops a Magnum TA. He drops a fucking Bobby Eaton reference. Like, he's just, I mean, if you don't know, like, what has Cody's fingerprints on it, like, listen to that dude do commentary. You'll know.
Cody will never say it. He hated that. He hated it.
I'm sure he
with
did.
with every fiber of his being. He hated that.
No,
I'm telling you.
to be fair, his dad did like Oz and a bunch of bullshit too, but I think he's smarter than that too.
Cody, he don't like that. I'm telling you, he hated it. I'm telling you. It's. Let me put it to you this way. Well, I'm not even going to do it. Forget you. I'll tell you off the air. But he hated it. I'm telling you. Think about it. It's bad. Mid-South Tony, come on, man. You know this is it. He knows it's bad too. And can I address this too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Some people are saying that, oh, well, you can't judge any of the TV right now. It's just a tough situation. No. That they get no quarter from me. They are presenting in-canon shows on a weekly basis.
Yeah, they're running. They're not saying, hey, we can't run, and here's what we're going to put on instead. Ring of Honor can maybe get a break because they're like, look, what do you want us to do? No, they're running live, air quotes, weekly television in canon. No.
Now, here's the thing. If they had been goofing off the last 2 weeks and just doing TV for the sake of doing it for contractual obligations and they've been being silly, I wouldn't be on this rant right now. Okay? I have no such rant for the Joey Janela social distancing match. You know why? It's just an out-of-canon thing that they did. They're trying to raise money for the wrestlers. What kind of fucking loser would you have to? You know, you'd have to be Jim Cornette.
Yeah, to be Jim Cornette to threaten people for trying to raise money for, their friends.
Yeah.
So.
And just out there making the best of the situation, putting a smile. It's funny. Social distance, the whole thing. Now, if AEW for the last 2 weeks have been out there just having non-canon, they're going out there, they're just doing fun shit. If Matt Hardy came out there and started teleporting it, not only would I not be ripping it, I might have enjoyed it. Again, context matters. They're out there putting on serious, fully in-canon shows. So I'm sorry. No, they don't get a break for this. They don't get a virus break. Because that's not what the show has been the last 2 weeks. So I don't want to hear that either. I don't buy that for a second. I shut that down as soon as I see it. So just wanted to get your take on that too.
No, for sure. All right, so real quickly, I'm gonna get. We do have some ratings that came out, so I'll give those real quick, and then if you want to run down these shows for a bit. So AEW 819,000 for them. So I forgot what that is over last week, but it's not a.
No, it's not over. They did 900 something.
That's what I thought. Okay, so they're down.
Listen, Do we do this or do we
let's wait a little. Let's wait a week. And then
all right. Because
but there it is. Listen back. 10, 15 minutes.
Here. Not even. Go dig up the fucking Impact shows from the archive from 4 years ago, and you can, So anyway, we won't do it this week.
We won't. We'll let them slide this week. But AEW 819,000. NXT did not chart. They ended up 56 at 669,000.
Okay, so here's what's happening. That last week's show destroyed every semblance of momentum. It just goes to show what that should tell Tony Khan is do not do a recap show at any point. Present some kind of wrestling no matter what, if you can, and tape as much as you can, because that has totally killed NXT's momentum. They didn't chart again. I mean, that's crazy. So I think last week just they're gonna have to earn people back. Now in 2 weeks they're doing Gargano Ciampa. So that'll tell you. Now again, a lot of people think the ratings don't mean anything, and that's true. But that doesn't mean there isn't stuff that you can sink your teeth into and analyze.
Right. You have to analyze them differently and think about them differently than we did before.
Sure.
But they're still worth looking at and talking about.
Here's why they don't matter. They don't matter from the perspective USA isn't going to hold their feet to the fire for this because they get it. TNT isn't going to hold their feet to the fire if they do poorly because they get it. But it doesn't mean that you can't analyze the ratings and understand why they either went up or down. Especially once we get a couple weeks into the thing and this is established as the new normal. Okay, we understand people are watching the news. We have baselines for that, though, now. So there still are ways to analyze it. But, yeah, listen, I would love to sit here and do 20 more minutes and dance on the grave of Broken Matt. But, again, that's not fair because what if next week, let's give it a couple weeks. But
yeah, exactly. Let's see what the trends look like, and then we can
we'll be. But listen, make no mistake, me and you are going to be fucking.
We're going to be right again. Yeah, so that's fine.
Okay, so anyway, so that ratings come out as a recording. That's good. So you want to run through the shows quickly? Cause,
yeah, let's do that. Yeah, because we got some other stuff to cover today.
God damn it, Dragon Gate's gonna get cut again.
No. We're gonna do Dragon Gate next.
We got to do All Japan. We got to do All Japan.
We don't have to. No,
Triple Crown title change, Rich.
Okay, fine. We're doing Dragon Gate after that, though. We can skip the Acid Cup. I can briefly touch on the Acid Cup, but
okay, let's do the. So AEW quickly opened up with Cody versus Jimmy Havoc. Rich, I thought this was a pretty decent match. I mean, I'm not running to my notebook, but Jimmy Havoc can always go either way. And I thought Jimmy Havoc was pretty decent here. Jimmy Havoc's a weird wrestler. Like, if you tell me you think Jimmy Havoc's good, my instinct is to argue with you. If you tell me Jimmy Havoc is bad, my instinct is also to argue with you.
right.
It's very weird. Like, where are you on Jimmy Havoc, and what'd you think of this?
Yeah, so I'm the same way too. Where like sometimes I think he's the worst fucking wrestler in the world, and then sometimes I think he's good, and I'm never quite sure what I'm gonna feel on what day or whatever. But I thought this was pretty damn good. I enjoyed this match a lot. I thought he was a little bit more of like it's a little more like chain wrestling style here, which I thought was interesting and kind of caught me by surprise. But yeah, I thought they had a really good little TV match here, and Cody gets the win pretty definitively at the end. But I thought Havoc also looked good in the fact that he was able to hang with Cody for a little bit. So no, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would like. Cody versus Jimmy Havoc on paper, I was like, oh dear God, that sounds awful, but it was pretty solid actually.
I think the thing with Havoc is this. I think the reason that no matter what you say about Jimmy Havoc, I'm probably going to want to disagree with you, is that sometimes he's good, but the thing is he doesn't have to be good. That's not what Jimmy Havoc is. Jimmy Havoc doesn't have to be fucking Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, he could just go and staple his forehead and everyone's going to like him.
It's like I think the thing is, it's like when he's bad, and sometimes he's bad. Like, I don't care because it's Jimmy Havoc, and it's like he doesn't have to be good. He's the Sandman. It's the perfect historical comp. Like, every now and then the Sandman would shock you with like a great match, and you're like, how the fuck? And then the Sandman would be like really drunk and have a horrible match, and it looks like he can't even run the ropes. But you're like, that's the Sandman. I don't want the Sandman to be Christopher Daniels and be smooth in the ring. He has to be the same thing with Jimmy Havoc. Like, I want him to be a little rough around the edges. That is who Jimmy Havoc is. So then when he's good, it's like a pleasant surprise. And when he's bad, you're like, that's Jimmy. Does that make any sense?
It does a little bit. Yeah. People that don't know the Sandman comp, it's really hard to do. But yeah, you got to be... It was a time and a place thing.
Is the Sandman comp even good? I mean, here, let me put it to you this way. If the Sandman comp is a bad comp, then tell me, because I keep making it, and I don't want to look like an idiot. But do you, like,
he's a guy. He's the best worst wrestler ever, Sandman, because he was terrible. He was so bad, he couldn't do anything. But then sometimes he, like you said, there would be like base competency from him, and it was awesome. But it didn't matter when he was really shitty and falling over himself, because while he was falling over himself, he was also hitting you with a cane, and it fucking ruled.
Yeah,
he'd like trip on the ropes, and as he's falling down, he's hitting your head, and you're like, that fucking rules, because that's what this drunk asshole would do. He just chugged a beer on the way down to the ring and crashed his skull in with it. So yeah, he's probably concussed and he's drunk, and now he doesn't know what he's doing, and that's fine. It's okay.
It just doesn't matter if those two guys are good. It's their whole vibe is that they're just fucking street brawlers or whatever from different eras. Like, Sandman is a 1990s South Philadelphia street brawler.
Here, you want people to get mad at us?
Yeah.
It's kind of Nick Cage, too.
Yeah, it kind of is.
He's not good, but he rules.
Yes.
But you don't want Nick Cage in there doing, hammerlocks and stuff.
No, you do not. And
you want Nick Cage coming out with the music, screaming, fuck you, and then beating the shit out of somebody, even if he's falling over himself and he can't run the ropes. It doesn't matter.
And it's like 90% the entrance, which, again, Sandman. So you're not wrong. And the other thing with Sandman and Havoc is, in their home promotions, you just don't get it if you don't get their, like, Sandman in ECW, it just works. Havoc in Progress, it just worked. You take them out and they lose something. Sandman was never the same outside of ECW. And I don't know. I think it's a good comp. But anyway, we move on so we don't have to cut Dragon Gate. Darby Allin defeats Kip Sabian. Rich, people get really worked up over Kip Sabian. What's wrong with being a jag that's just a mid-carder?
The problem is this jag gets like 25 minutes for every one of his matches. Again, this one was like 5 minutes too long.
Yeah.
In and out, like give this guy 6 minutes in and out. Like the base of Kip Sabian, the idea of Kip Sabian, I don't have a problem with. The problem I have is like for some reason somebody thinks that this kid needs 15 minutes every time he gets in the ring, and he doesn't.
Isn't that an AEW problem though? Like, don't all their matches go a little too long?
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, that kind of ties into a bigger issue, but people get really worked up over Sabian. I have like no feelings on Kip Sabian, which means that like, I don't know, like all of a sudden I'm the fan because everyone else is like, this guy doesn't even belong on I mean, geez, you could do a lot worse than this guy. I mean, he's nothing. He's a mid-carder.
Yeah, I don't think he's great or anything, but yeah, if he's in a main event, I'm annoyed. But
he's unlikable.
If he's just a dude that's on the roster and he's got a hot babe or whatever, that's whatever. Who cares? He's just a dude that gets in the ring with his hot babe and then loses. It's fine. Sometimes he wins.
Yeah, he's a guy in a mid-card feud with Joey Janela, and they didn't even put him on the pay-per-view. So it's not like they think super highly of him. You know, he's a guy that loses to Darby Allin on TV. I don't see why people get worked up over this guy. But yeah, anyway, Darby wins it with the Last Supper. Now, this is another little AEW thing that I love. They don't always use, he didn't use the fucking backwards dive gimmick.
The coffin drop.
Yeah.
He didn't need to.
Didn't need to. Why? Because it's mid-carder Kip Sabian, who all of you were worked up over. Okay? He's a guy who loses to secondary finishers, and you're all worked up over this guy. It would be like getting worked up over, I don't know, name someone from WCW or WWE that was on TV for years in the mid-card and never got moved up. And, you know, did you get worked up over Brad Armstrong in WCW? No, you didn't. What's the big deal?
I was going to say Prince Iaukea, but he fucking won so many titles.
Darby
and shit. Yeah. Go on.
Well, yeah, he was clearly overpushed, even though those titles didn't mean much. But Jake Hager wins another squash. He won a squash on Dark. Did you watch Dark?
Oh, God. No, I did not.
Rich, Dark ruled.
Did it? Okay. All right.
It was six like squash matches, right? It felt like WCW Worldwide.
Okay.
It was just like,
you're speaking my language. All right.
That's the vibe it gave me. Yeah, because it was like squash matches that none of them overstayed their welcome, one after another. No bullshit. And then you got like one or two matches with like lower mid-carders. Like they did Colt Cabana versus Kip Sabian. Okay, there you go. He lost again, and everyone's worked up over this guy. And it's like, that was such a worldwide match, you know? It was like, you know, watching the Armstrongs wrestle fucking disorderly conduct for the 19th time,
right.
You know?
Well, a little fucking high voltage, a little high voltage out there. Yeah.
Easy. Yeah. So Jake Hager won a squash on Dark, and now he wishes a squash here over Chico Adams, Rich. What a name. You know, not much to take away from this other than this is a smart way to use Hager. He obviously isn't very good. So you put him out there and just let him destroy guys, and you're building him up for this title match against Mox, which Mox is obviously going to win. And it's a nice little placeholder title match for Mox. So anything to add?
Not really. No, I've wanted for a while Jake Hager to be doing these style of matches. Like I was kind of surprised even at Revolution there live that he didn't just beat Dustin in like 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, what do you really need Dustin to be built up for? Like, this is exactly what you do with Jake Hager. Similar to what they did, eventually when Wardlow gets back up and running again. I'm sure he's going to do these things, build him up for a match against a big guy, then he's going to lose against that big guy, go back, beat a bunch of guys, build up for a big match against a big guy, and then lose. You know, that's wrestling 101. So no, yeah, have Hager look like a dominant monster for a few months or a few weeks or whatever. Then he faces Moxley, he loses, he goes back and he does it. And you can repeat this time and time again. It's one of those old wrestling truisms. So yeah, I love it. I think it's perfect.
Mox brought up taking him out on a stretcher. Are they doing a stretcher match?
God.
because you can beat Hager without pinning him. I think they're doing a stretcher match, Rich.
God.
Yeah. Next was the Dark Order bit with Brody Lee eating the steak. That was a nice looking steak, by the way. I was starving after I saw that steak.
I don't think it was that great of a steak.
That's a nice looking steak.
A
and
little
good
well
grill
done
marks
to
on
me.
it.
I think it was a little well done on purpose too.
Now that's interesting because I thought it was a little too pink.
I'll have to go back and watch this and study it.
Well, how do you take your steak?
Me, I do either medium or medium well because I like a little char.
See, I'm more of a medium well guy as well. I go well on cheap steak because look, I know I'm a lunatic, but I like when my steak is like shoe leather, and I know that's weird. I don't defend it.
You're a fucking weirdo. Yeah, that's fine.
But listen, if you don't defend it, then you can't really get on me. Like, I know it's stupid. Which is why I buy cheap steak because I'm just.
If you're just gonna mutilate it like that, you might as well just.
Yeah, but if I'm eating a nice cut of steak, I go medium well.
Yeah, people always give me shit for the medium well, but the reason why I do that is the center of the steak is always going to stay pretty good. But I love the ends. I love the fat getting a little char on it, getting a little burnt. You know, that's what we're talking about. If you go to like a Brazilian steakhouse or something like that, or any place like that, you want that fat to have a little bit of burn to it. It's a different flavor altogether.
Don't understand the rare people. I'm not Gangrel. I don't enjoy blood.
Yeah, the black and blues and those sort of things. It's
now
horrifying.
Black and blue. Now listen, the rare people. I don't understand you, and I think you're weird, and I think you're hanging out with fucking, Vampire Warrior.
You're Chris Wolf, or you're Chris Wolf. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but the black and blue people, you are lunatics. I don't want to even know you.
Right? It's so weird.
That's just.
You know a black and blue guy?
I dated a black and blue girl.
Ooh.
And it's weird. We worked at a steakhouse together. And we would eat at the end of the shift, and she would get black and blue. And Rich was horrifying. It was like, because you know what black and blue is.
Yeah, for people that don't know, do you want to give a little idea for people that are maybe not steak connoisseurs of what the black and blue is?
Yeah, it's a raw piece of meat on your plate. It basically goes on the it goes on the grill for 30 seconds just as a token gesture.
Right, and it's a very hot grill too. So the outside is burnt. Like it is as hot. It's a really, really, really heavy sear on the outside on both sides. Quick little flip, and then it's done.
And it's literally cold still on the inside.
Yes.
Like when you remove a steak from your refrigerator and put your finger on it, that's what it feels like underneath the char. And it's just blood and
it's like
cold.
Purple. Yeah, it's weird.
And she's trying to cut it, and it's like almost hard to cut because like the flesh is just moving back and forth. Rich is vile.
It's
just
not good.
Like I didn't want to fuck this girl after I watched her eat. It was disgusting.
Right. Because you know that, I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, and she had like nice jugs and everything, but I did not want to fuck her after she ate steak. That's how disgusting it was. And I'm not even like a skeevy kind of person like that. But anyway, so they do the Dark Order segment. Brody Lee's eating his steak. He's getting offended by the sneeze. And I really had turned the corner on Dark Order. We already talked about it, but at that point, it was like an epiphany. Holy shit. I get it. I understand why they never stopped doing it. And I'm all in. That was my feelings when I was watching this. And I had a nice little 40-minute bit planned where I was going to eat my own shit. But that's all out the window because Mid-South Tony blew it at the end of the show.
Because they fucked up the last segment of the show. So.
Yes. So instead of, taking a reverse victory lap, I had to sit there and rant about Matt Hardy. But anything else to add about the segment? Pretty much.
I enjoyed it too. I don't know if I'm fully on the Dark Order, but now I get it a little bit more, and I loved Brody Lee as the leader. I was a little uneasy about it right at first, but I liked this segment a lot. And this is what I'm saying, where you can be over the top, and you can be bizarre, and you can be weird, and not have it be supernatural. There's nothing supernatural about this. It's just that Brody Lee is, this cult leader.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy, and he's a cult leader, and he's unpredictable.
He was mistreated, and he's nuts now because he was mistreated.
Right, and so that it's not hard. It's not hard to kind of see the story there, and yeah, that's fine. You can relate to that. You can make it make sense at some level. It's just the volume is turned up as much as possible. So I enjoyed it. You think it would have been a little too on the nose if you had a thing of ketchup there, or
and he cut it up and put it in a wrap.
Yeah, the wrap would have been a little too much on the nose, but I would have enjoyed the ketchup. I would have enjoyed just a little dabble of ketchup.
Little dab of ketchup. But because they're not being subtle, so why bother? Just go all the way. But the Dark Order, it's like I get it now. It's like he mistreats his minions. it's all perfect. You know,
well,
there's
they
just so
come
much
because
symbolism.
you have the promise of good times and the promise of a whole new beginning for you in your life, and you'll
Promise of Nirvana.
right. And then you get there and it's dark, it's dingy, and you're getting yelled at by a crazed maniac. So
you get there, Rich, and Daddy eats first.
yeah. Is that a true story with Vince?
Well, that's a Cody thing.
That's what I thought.
Cody,
He had that shirt, but is that a Vince thing where he has to eat before everybody else?
I think I don't know, but
They would. I mean, those guys would know for sure. So I trust them to know that. But
I thought it was a Cody. I thought it was just like a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the failed Cody shirt, which was poorly thought out. But I don't know if Cody did the shirt to mock Vince. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know, but I thought what's funny is he's eating the steak and the other two guys aren't eating. And I tweeted out, Daddy eats first because of the Cody thing. And then he actually said it like 30 seconds later. And I was like, oh my God, they're literally doing Daddy eats first. I don't know. I turned the corner on it because I feel like I get it now. It's like he's Vince. The Dark Order is WWE. And it is a really like macabre, dark fucking look at what WWE is and what Vince is. And I'm like, that is a heavy fucking shit. This whole thing. And now I get why they never backtracked on it, even when everybody was shitting on it, because they let it play out. And they had to expose that idea to people. Like they couldn't just let that die because this is great. But I see why you have reservations, because there's a possibility that could I be working myself into a shoot? And could it just be firing off a couple jokes about Vince and then we're back to fucking
right? Then it's Evil Uno doing evil laughs
Yeah.
again. Yeah, that's my worry. Is Brody Lee? I think he's good in the role, but I have no idea what's going to happen when we get back to Uno and those sort of guys being part of it.
I didn't know Brody Lee could talk this well. That's been a revelation to me. I mean, I didn't know he was this kind of promo. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
I know some
most of those guys are, man. Most of these pro wrestlers, and you don't see it for a lot of them, and it sucks.
Well, because he can't do a Southern accent. When are they going to bring that up? He's got to bring that up at some point, right? The Southern accent thing.
For sure. Oh, no doubt.
I mean, geez, you see this guy knock it out of the park 2 weeks in a row in these pre-tapes, and you're like, how did they have this guy under their employ for so long? And, well, why are we even going down that road? It's incredible how they just – it's such a shit company. Like, they don't utilize anyone to their fullest. It's crazy. What was next here? Because we really are running short on time.
We are. We got to get moving here. Next was Brody Lee and QT Marshall. So.
Oh, yeah, so short squash
it,
match.
yeah.
And then we had a Matt Hardy pre-tape, and then we had Sammy G versus Kenny for the AAA Super Mega Heavyweight. They still call it all those fancy names.
I think they just call it the Mega here. I don't know if the Super was in there, but yeah.
Back in the Macias days or whatever. But good little match here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I thought Sammy looked good, and it's hard to have that style of match without fans there, but fuck it, just go out there and wrestle. I enjoyed it. Of course, Kenny retains, and then what do we have from there? I can't read my own writing on whatever they did next. Oh, here's the note I took. I thought the cutaways to the wrestlers in the trailer were very overwrought and corny by this point. Who was the girl in like the purple?
I don't know. I was trying to figure that out too, because it was Austin Gunn, Billy Gunn, Shawn Spears, Jericho, and then I have no idea who that woman was.
Whoever she was, she needs to dial it back. Very annoying. Very annoying. Earlier in the show when they were doing the cutaways, it was fine. It added something to the show without having the wrestlers at ringside. During this match, that room was very annoying.
Well, it became a one-note joke, again, like you were saying. The scream at the television was fine for like 10 minutes to establish, hey, we got people backstage, we have people watching this. But you keep going back and keep going back and keep going back and keep going back. It's eventually just going to get really tiresome.
Or how about just react naturally? Why are we screaming like lunatics when there's not even like a high spot happening?
Right.
That bothered me. It felt very contrived, quite honestly. It felt very WWE. That's how they would handle something like that. They'd have people overacting, and that's what that felt like. Very corny, and I thought that to some small extent hurt the match. And then we had the closing segment, which we already discussed. So not nearly as good as last week's episode. Even if you take away the absolute bomb of a closing segment, I still don't think it was as good as last week. So, but it wasn't terrible until the end.
All right. You want to run through NXT here real quick?
So Tyler Breeze beats Austin Theory, and this was so utterly ridiculous.
Wait, what? Why?
No, not even the result. Listen, you're going to hate this even worse.
Oh, no.
So, they're having a nice little match, right? Nothing to, write home about. But then Austin Theory finds Tyler Breeze's phone in the corner.
Oh, no.
And he picks up Tyler Breeze's phone, because Breeze does the phone game.
Yeah.
So he picks up the phone, and he starts muttering to himself, "I'm not a flash in the pan. I'm not a flash in the pan."
Oh,
as he's staring at Tyler Breeze's phone, right? And then as he's muttering to himself into Tyler Breeze's phone, Tyler Breeze hits his finish and pins him.
Oh, gross. Fuck.
Beyond awful.
I hate it. That sucks. That sounds so terrible.
And again, when there's no fans, totally community theater time when this is all going down. As he's doing this bad act, he's acting with a phone in his hand, and muttering to himself like a crazy person, and then gets hit with the finish. So bad. So we're off to a bad start. Killian Dane won a squash over Tahuti Miles. I am not familiar with Tahuti Miles. I believe this was his TV debut. But NXT, they debut guys, they squash them for a while. And then they get put
which is fine.
So, yeah. Cameron Grimes defeats Tony Nese. It was okay. Aaliyah comes out to have her ladder match qualifier against Xia Li.
Do not tell me they're putting Aaliyah in a ladder match. Oh, my God.
Oh, no. Much like the Austin Theory Tyler Breeze match, you're going to hate this worse when I tell you what actually happened. So Xia Li's music hits, Rich, and she doesn't come out. Tell me if you've heard this story before.
Boy.
So we cut to the back where Xia Li is holding her knee and rolling around on the floor.
No.
How many times has NXT done this?
I know. We need some help back here. We need some help. Same thing every time.
You got it. Referees, Drake Wirtz, the whole gang, right? The whole gang is there. What happened? Who did this? She's screaming and crying, writhing on pain on the ground. Need to get some help. Say it again.
We need to get some help here. We need to get some help back here.
There's help back here. So of course, Aaliyah's like, "Hey, I'm the winner. I have no opponent here. Raise my hand, referee. Put me in that ladder match, right?" So, Rich, you're never going to guess, but someone else's music hit. Can you believe it that they sent out another opponent? So, Io Shirai comes out, making her big return. A baby face again, all of a sudden, I guess. I'd love to tell you how the crowd reacted, but there was no crowd. And but the announcers were acting like she was a baby face. So she was a heel, right? I'm not going crazy. Like
she was, yeah. She was definitely 100% a heel, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so she comes out and defeats Aaliyah in short order, and Io Shirai is moving on to the ladder match. So Keith Lee comes out to cut a promo. He wants to apologize for inadvertently attacking Donovan Dijakovic. If you recall, Rich, he was attacked by Damian Priest, but he thought it was Dijakovic.
Yeah.
So he attacked Dijakovic. Dijakovic comes out. He's hearing none of it. He goes, "Whether you apologize to me or not, you still attacked me and you still took food off of my table." And I thought to myself, how? You haven't missed any action.
Right, you've been here every time. Maybe you missed the house show. Maybe you missed the Largo Loop show. So
I'm like, you're here. What do you mean? Like, you're not on crutches. You're just like, what food did he take off your table? So then Damian Priest comes out and, he admits that he did the attack or whatever. Lee and Priest brawl on the outside. And Donovan Dijakovic, who is so injured that food has been taken off his table, does a springboard dive suicide plancha onto both men to take both of them out. So that's how that segment ends. And then we had Adam Cole, Bebe, from his backyard. Rich, Adam Cole is cutting iPhone promos from his backyard, and Britt Baker is nowhere to be found on Dynamite.
It's a little strange. Yes, you're right.
A little scary, Rich. I don't know about you, but
because he lives about a few minutes away from the.
Now look,
PC.
If Adam Cole and Britt Baker are going through best practice here, and doing the responsible thing. Good on them. But, I'm hoping for the best there is all I'm saying.
For sure.
I'm not ripping them. I want everyone to be clear.
No,
I'm just saying,
is what they should do. Yeah, but the idea, Well, we said it again. I said it last week. There are absolutely wrestlers in major companies that have this, that they're just saying, you know what, just don't say anything. It's like either they maybe got it in the ring or they passed it, like whatever. It's probably best to just do what a lot of people are doing and just go away for a little bit, quarantine, worry about yourself, and just, we don't need to announce every single person that tests positive or thinks that they have it or whatever. There's not really a need for that. Just right now, the good idea is what they're doing. So if they have it, or if they're just being precautious, whatever it is, I have no problem with them. But you're right. It is. There are people that you are watching, or there are people that you haven't seen. Assume, you don't have to 100% assume, but, be smart about it. Think with your brain and think of why maybe, he's cutting an iPhone promo and Britt's nowhere around. So
Lorcan and Birch took on Shane Thorne and Vink, who you may have seen do a job on Raw.
Yeah.
They're Australian, you see, so now they're tag team partners. Shane Thorne's last Australian tag team worked out real good, so let's go down that road again. The difference here is I don't think they have any designs on pushing Shane Thorne and Vink. I think they're just there to do jobs, which is a shame because Elliot Sexton's very talented. Shane Thorne is very talented. Vink was going to get the big push in Evolve because Gabe is just giving away all his booking plans because he has gone crazy. And, he was probably going to win the title WrestleMania weekend. He's doing the undefeated gimmick in Evolve while losing left and right on WWE TV. Lorcan and Birch win this one. They looked awesome. This was probably the best match on the show. Despite the fact that there was a Matt Riddle-Roderick Strong match on the show, this was probably the best match on the show. Birch, in particular, was a madman here. I love this tag team, but that was a nice little tag match. We had Candice LeRae versus Caden Carter for ladder entry. Of course, Candice wins that one to become the final entrant to the ladder match. Show closes. Well, doesn't close, but the final match on the show is Matt Riddle and Roderick Strong. Very disappointing considering the participants, but this was all set up for Stokely. Well, Stokely, I said it. God damn it.
Oh, Malcolm Givens.
Malcolm Bivens to finally debut with a couple of large Indian boys. They didn't give them names, but it's two of the Indian wrestlers from the Performance Center. They came in and did a number on Matt Riddle, and then Malcolm Bivens cut a short promo saying that they are there to take over the tag team division. And Bivens also noted that he knew Pete Dunne wasn't there, so he picked this week on purpose to send a message. So clearly establishing that he's an asshole too, which is good, He's like, I knew you were alone, so we were going to fuck you up when your boy wasn't here to help you. So I have no problem with that.
Well, at least they're finally fucking using this guy. They've had it for a year and a half at this point, right? And it's like, Jesus.
Yeah, and the two big Indian guys, I mean, they didn't have to do much except beat the shit out of Riddle and do power moves.
That's
so they
fine.
okay.
I could use a big monster team on NXT. I always liked, the Authors of Pain or whatever. It's a good spot for those guys.
I was just going to say it was very reminiscent of AOP when they debuted. So we'll see where that goes. And then the show closed with Triple H cutting a promo. He gets cut off by, that's Tommaso Ciampa's music. So Daddy's home.
Baby, Daddy's home.
Daddy's home comes out.
He wants Goldie.
And he wants Goldie.
He fucking
Look,
stinks. I hate Tommaso Ciampa.
Honest to God, I thought I was going to hate this like I always do. But he goes, it was very good. This closing segment was very good. Because then he goes, I know Johnny's back there. Get him out here. So Gargano comes out, and Triple H says, I'm telling you right now, there will be no physical contact. Because Regal wanted to fire you guys, and I already saved your job once. If you fight again, I'm firing both of you. Now, I liked that.
That's cool.
Because it established that we're just going to lay out what's going to happen, and we're not going to have another brawl. You see, and it was plausible what he laid out. I enjoyed that. They were both fined for tearing up the Performance Center. We have learned that as well. Gargano was pretty great here. He said, hey, look, why am I being fined? He's the one who attacked me in the conference room. He's the one who threw the weights through the mirror. He's the one who put me through the table. And he's such a coward that he put himself through the window which so he's making all these great points, and then because he's the heel, he makes a totally absurd point at the end. And I thought that was funny, and I thought it was good. I still think Gargano has a legitimate gripe, but at least he's saying like asshole things to kind of attempt to heal himself here.
Right. You don't always want your heel to be the smartest guy in the room. You don't want him to be a complete buffoon, but you also want him to do something at the end where you're like, ah, man, I can't root for you now because you're such an idiot. Like, he didn't. So that's perfect. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, because he's making all these great points. I'm like, that's true. Ciampa did attack him. That's true. He did throw the weights through the mirror. And then he's like, oh, and that coward tried to jump through a window. And then I'm like, oh, well, that's just perfect heel stuff right there. So aside from Gargano getting a little too corny at points, because that's Gargano, this was, I'm not going to call it a home run, but a very good segment that I thought was going to be terrible. Triple H was good, Ciampa was good, and Gargano was mostly good. And the end result was Triple H said, I've been through this with Shawn. I know how both of you feel. We're going to end it. It's going to be over one more time. And he wanted him to get it on right there. But Gargano was like, hey, man, listen, I just got put through a table. I need some time. So Triple H is like, well, when do you want to do it? And Gargano goes, in 2 weeks. And then Triple H looked at Tommaso Ciampa. He gave a little nod, and he said, okay, I'm going to find a building that's willing to house you two animals, and we're going to do this in 2 weeks. What do you mean you have to find a building? You're in one. You've been in one for the last 3. He said it like 3 times, like, I got to find a building that can contain this, but you have 2 buildings. You have Full Sail. You have the Performance Center. So I don't know. That was kind of silly. But bottom line here is they built the final blow-off match for Daddy's Home and Johnny Wrestling for 2 weeks on NXT. So good segment, and we'll see if that can get NXT back on track with their viewership a little bit. What do we got to work with here? Like 45 minutes?
We have about 50 minutes or so, right on the dot 50 minutes.
We gotta do we gotta do Dragon Gate.
We gotta. Telling you.
Okay, so let's talk some Dragon Gate.
Yeah, there it is. We'll talk Triple Crown. Don't worry. Well, the Acid Cup. Sorry, guys, you might get lost. I will tell you real quick. Acid Cup. You won't believe me, but Alley Cat and Chris Dickinson had a very good match.
I'll tell you what we're gonna do, Rich. Since we're running out of shit to watch by the day, I will watch it this week.
There you go. Yeah.
And we'll do the Game Changer next week.
Yeah, there you go. This, they make mention that, hey, this might be the last wrestling show for quite a while. So, like, yeah, well, it might be an evergreen wrestling show for. So, yeah, you might have time.
Yeah, and they've been running every Thursday while we were recording. They're not running this week, so I'll watch the Game Changer this week. We'll do the Game Changer next week because I feel like we're going to need stuff to talk about.
Okay, yeah. I think there's some fun stuff to talk about this, too. There's some guys that I think you'll like, some stuff that you might enjoy about the future of indie wrestling, some stuff you might hate about the future of indie wrestling, but I think they're fun and interesting shows. So, yeah, definitely, yeah, we'll do that. I close the windows. We'll talk about it next week. There you go.
So, also, with apologies to our pal Davis Storm, who is a listener and who is begging us to bury him. I mean, this man wants nothing more than for us to come on the air. He wants nothing more than for us to kill him. He wants.
I know. He hates that we enjoy his stuff, and like every time I watch it, I'm like, it's fine. How did this guy? I guess. Well, if he wants it, we'll do it. I guess
he wants to get crushed.
We'll tell him to go out there and have a shit match, and then we'll fucking crush him for it.
That's what. Listen, I watched the match. You didn't yet.
I didn't.
So we'll move the EPW to next week too. So again, apologies to our pal Davis Storm. We know he's listening. He wants nothing more than for me to say this. He wants me to say, Rich, and as for Davis Storm, I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's begging for that line. But here's the thing. He's got to have bad matches for that to happen. And, we'll see what you think of the match. Okay. I'm going to hold my opinions for next week, too. So we'll move the Game Changer to next week. We'll move the EPW show to next week. But we will do both because Rich didn't have a chance to watch that, and I didn't have a chance to watch Game Changer. So instead of one-sided segments, plus the 50 minutes gives us time to do Dragon Gate and All Japan without feeling rushed. Okay, so let's do – and let me tell you, let me just say this. If Davis Storm has a bad match, we are going to bury him. Don't think that we wouldn't bury him. I mean, I hope people understand that. We bury people all the time who we know are going to listen to us bury them. So the pressure's on, Rich. I'm kind of hoping – you don't like the match. I did like the match, I got to admit. But I hope you didn't. But we'll see. There's a chance you don't like the match, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't want to say too much more.
That's fine. Yeah, don't spoil anything because I really actually don't know any of the results of anything, and I'll stay away too. And just
there's a chance you don't like the match. I'll just say that. But let's do the Dragon Gate. Okay, so I watched Dragon Gate's entire year in 2 days this past week.
Which is good and bad.
It's good and bad. It's good because, I was able to catch up on their entire year. It's bad because it's only because there was like 5 shows on tape because of everything that's going on. And the show that they just had, which is what this segment is going to be built around, was the live YouTube show that they did with the English commentary on, I want to say, Sunday night, right?
Yeah, it was the 22nd. The 22nd, yeah. And
that show was their empty arena show, and they did AEW style with the crew around the ring, and their crew was very rambunctious.
Oh, they were ready to go. This actually ruled. This is my favorite of the empty arena shows that I've watched over the last few days.
You have never seen Super Shisha more excited than you will see him here.
Gamma, the MVP here, was incredible. So, oh my God, he was so great.
The International Problem Dragon was very excitable on the outside of the ring for this one. But yeah, so their crew did a nice job with the atmosphere of the show. But the YouTube show, which is free and available on YouTube, it wasn't a very consequential show in terms of storylines. They went out there and had some fun, mostly short matches, that didn't overstay their welcome. It wasn't like it was non-canon or anything like that, but this wasn't loaded up with, the storylines didn't move forward in a big way, and there were no title matches or anything.
Right.
Like that.
If you wanted to skip this one, you'd probably be okay. Like, I would just watch it because I thought it was a really fun time. It was a really fun show. But like, if you don't have time to watch it, you're not gonna nothing so consequential happened that like, if you don't watch the show, you're not gonna be able to, follow Dragon Gate or whatever. No, it wasn't that whatsoever.
But if you're not someone who has the Dragon Gate service and you're not a Dragon Gate watcher and you've been meaning to get into Dragon Gate, I would recommend this show because I thought the show was fun and it didn't overstay its welcome and it gave you a good taste of what the promotion is like and what the key wrestlers are.
Yeah, the units, the key wrestlers, the reasons why the units are fighting, the little bit of background of the units and stuff. So yeah, that to that point, like, yeah, you're not going to watch any like huge title changes. You're not going to watch any, big time matches. If you're a consistent Dragon Gate watcher, you're aware of Dragon Gate. Yeah, you might be able to miss this one if you really need to or you want to. But yeah, if you're somebody that's always, because we always get there, okay, when should I watch Dragon Gate or when should I jump in or whatever? This is a fun one because I thought Jay and Larry Dallas did an incredible job of telling you who each guy was, what they were, a little bit of their story, a little bit of their history, and yeah, as an introduction to the company, I thought it was fantastic from that standpoint. It's fun. It's just a really, really fun show. And the guys, they work their ass off. It's not like everyone's kind of going through the motions. Like, no, there aren't any like big title matches. No, there aren't any like incredible matches. But I thought everybody tried to some level. It wasn't like they went out there and just bullshitted around for 5 minutes and got out of the ring. Like, there's decent wrestling in this. It's just, yeah, consequential, maybe not, but still, yeah, it was a hell of a show. I really had a lot of fun watching it. Yeah,
it's they all worked hard, and you've got the English commentary, and Jai and Larry Dallas are very good, shockingly good, on both counts. I mean, no one knew what to expect from Larry. I mean, we've talked about that before. I was kind of confident he'd be okay, but he's been better than I thought he'd be. And Jai, who knew what? He never did anything like this before. They just threw him into the fucking pool without a life preserver, and it turns out he's pretty damn good. He really comes off like a cross between like Mike Tenay. He's that style.
Yeah, he's the Tenay style. Yeah, he's not going to call every move as it's going on, but he's gonna color the picture for you while it's happening, which is perfect.
And just he's an encyclopedia of knowledge. So, like a Mike Tenay or an Excalibur, someone along those lines, when Larry Dallas throws something to him, he has the answer.
Right. And to a shocking degree too. Like, I thought Larry said something here. I forgot what it was.
I'll tell you what it was.
Oh, the exact quote where Jay corrected him and was like, actually 2016 is when, like, I was like, holy shit. Like, how'd you just know that?
Because me and you think the same. Okay. So I know when we heard this, we both thought the same thing. Dragon Dia is getting a big push.
Yeah.
Okay. And has been scoring pinfalls like on it. Cause I watched all the shows. They're pushing this guy, and he was in the main event and won again. And Larry he says, Dragon Dia has been red hot. I can't even think of the last time he lost a fall. And Jai had the answer like that. Like, oh, it was like June. I think it was June 2018, and whatever the answer was is irrelevant. But he had the fucking answer.
Right? It's like, how do you know that off the top of your head?
And they definitely they definitely didn't plan that. They did not plan.
No, you couldn't have. You could not have planned there was that one. I think there was another one earlier in the show too, where he just like, or it probably was the exact same one. And there's no way that you can have it in your notes to say, hey, when Larry asks the last time Dragon, because it's just they're just talking. You know what I mean? They're just two dudes talking. But the fact that he could pull that up and immediately go, yeah, no, it was June 2018 is the last time he had a fall, and I was like, whoa, holy shit.
I mean, I'm not even sure Larry expected him to answer. All Larry was trying to do was put the guy over for being on a winning streak. Like, he's just doing his job.
Well, and that's why it's Tenay like too, because Tenay would do that too. Like Tony Schiavone would be like, "Wow, we've never seen this match," and he's like, "Well, Tony, actually, Juventud Guerrero and Rey Mysterio actually fought each other 14 times in
yes.
like, in Mexico before coming to," and they'd just be like, "Oh," you know what I mean? Like Tony and Bobby would just make fun of him, but Tenay couldn't let it go. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't just like let Tony say, "Wow, what an interesting and unique match here we have on Nitro," without being like, "Well, actually, Tony, these men fought 13 times in a single month back when they were both 16 years old in Mexico." It's just like he couldn't let it go. He just couldn't let that go without correcting it, which I love. I love that shit.
I'm so annoyed that Tenay has kind of been run off because and miscast for so many years in TNA as a play-by-play guy. Why are you using Mike Tenay as a play-by-play guy? And then it's like, because he has so much to offer. And I listen to Dave's Wrestling Observer radios, and it's like Tenay, he's out there in Vegas making money, betting on sports. Well, not now.
Yeah, I was going to say it was.
And he's like watching Bearcat Wright tapes, and it's like he still likes wrestling, and it's like, where he would be perfect? NWA. I have no idea what his relationship is with Lagana or Billy, but man, you stick him out in that booth, and he doesn't even have to talk a lot, just to give history of the titles and stuff, and just add a little gravitas to it. And he belongs somewhere, though. It annoys me that Tenay has been run off. Maybe he doesn't want to do it. For all I know, he's been asked. I don't know. But you think AEW would call him? You think Tony would call him?
Yeah, I'm surprised that he might just say I'm good. He might have been so burnt out by the TNA thing. He might be good.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want to.
I don't know, because he doesn't engage in the discourse at all anymore either. Like, you don't hear him, you don't see him. He just texts Dave about Bearcat Wright and then just goes away. Like, that's what he wants to do, which is, hey, it's fine. But
yeah, and he's given away his tapes. Did you notice that too?
Oh, right, yeah.
I forget who is it. Maybe Roy Lucier, one of those guys. Like Tenay just keeps sending the guy all his tapes. Like, it's kind of sad in a way. But when it comes to tapes, like, you can never watch them all. That's the other thing too. I mean, at some point you just got to be like, I don't even have a collection nearly the extent of what someone like Mike Tenay would have. And it's like, you look at it sometimes, you're like, I'm never watching this. I'm going to die before I ever watch it.
Right. And you want to give it to somebody who can maybe throw it up on a YouTube or whatever, or transpose. And if you know that you're not going to be the guy that's going to do it, it might be a better idea to let everybody see. You have this tape. Maybe nobody else has this. Let me send it to a guy who can put it up on YouTube and make sure a bunch of people can see it as well.
Yeah. And then it gets preserved, and people who really will have the time to watch can watch. But anyway, that's the kind of vibe you get from Jai on these broadcasts. He's shockingly good. And I don't mean this as a burial to either guy, that when I say they're shockingly good, it's just they're new at it.
Yeah, right. Because did you ever listen to the first? Maybe it was the first time that they did it, or the second time. It was rough, and we always say, we're not the type of guys that are going to complain, because we always tell you everybody can go and bitch and moan about play-by-play and color guys or whatever. Go do it. People that bitch and moan about podcasts, go do it. It's not that easy. People think you hit a mic, you talk about wrestling, you're ready to go. It's not like that. It's really, play-by-play is so difficult. Color is so difficult. The idea of having that balance between two co-hosts and knowing when the other one's done and knowing how to bounce off the other person and add to the other person, add color to it. It's so difficult. And you need reps. You need a lot of reps. These guys, the first time, really awkward, didn't quite have it, a little weird. The information was all there, but they didn't really have the flow. By show 3-4, man, they're ready to go, and now they're good. Like, I really like the team.
I thought they were pretty good together, pretty fast, honestly. But yeah, they're very good. But and this is a good show because you'll learn a lot. It's in English. You get a good idea who everybody is, and the people who are being pushed mostly won. Speed Muscle came back together, so Big Billy Thompson, I'm sure, was on top of that one. And, because Speed Muscle, not a regular, real inside baseball stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I like it, though, yeah. But, just let it hang. The people that get it, get it.
Yoshino and Doi, they don't team a lot, these days, but they were in a tag match here. And, that ended in DQ, that match. Okay, so they beat BB Hulk and Takashi Yoshida, the former Cyber Kong. They win by DQ. And there was another match on, I believe, the previous Korakuen, which also just, the typical Dragon Gate where the referee gets knocked down and it's just all hell breaks loose. Right. You get the clothesline fucking line where they just take turns clotheslining someone in the corner and that spot, and it just breaks down. And that's the Dragon Gate house style. The referees don't see shit. But that ended in a DQ as well. And now we got a DQ on this show. Rich, this is big. The Dragon Gate refs are getting smarter, and they're not taking this shit anymore. This is a seismic shift. Is this a good thing or a bad thing that the Dragon Gate refs are starting to enforce the rules more?
Good. I love it. Yeah, I'm down. I've for a while thought it would have been cool to have a little bit more of that because it's so dorky at sometimes. When it'd be like the classic like Cyber Kong would hold the referee in the corner, and then 20 dudes would come in and do clotheslines and their finishers or whatever, and it's like, come on, the ring's shaking and things are going nuts. Like it was some of the things that we would kind of say, okay, if you're getting into Dragon Gate, this happens, and you kind of have to let your brain go just to let it happen. But now you don't have to do that, which is good. I'd rather that.
The classic Dragon Gate spot is, like you said, Cyber Kong is loosely holding the ref in one of the corners.
And it's always the same one. It's like that really young, skinny one that's like, always 19 years old. I forget the name of that ref. But yeah, it'd be like very loosely holding him while everybody else in the ring, just every member of fucking insert heel Dragon Gate unit runs in and does their finisher and clotheslines and drop kicks and all that sort of shit.
It's the clothesline spot. And then all the heels run in and they do the clothesline in the corner one after another. But then one of the baby faces puts one of the heels in the corner and reverses it. And then all the baby faces run in and do the clothesline spot in the corner. And that is the classic Dragon Gate spot. Meanwhile, the referee, who's being loosely held in the corner, apparently cannot hear or see that any of this is going on. Right. And then finally turns around and or the other classic Dragon Gate spot is someone will throw 8 pounds of powder in someone's
the whole
face.
Ring is just engulfed in.
And then the entire arena is just engulfed in a cloud of powder. The man's face is completely covered in powder. He's coughing up powder, and the referee will still count the fall. I love that one too. And usually accompanied by like a broken plastic box that was smashed over the guy's head as well. But hey, hopefully these referees are tightening things up a bit, because I've actually seen 2 DQs in Dragon Gate in the span of like in real time was like a month. So encouraging signs there. But yeah, this is a show. There's no reason to break it down match by match, I don't think. But the people who needed to win won. Dragon Dia, again, wins in the main event. Dragon Dia, KZ, and Yusuke Santa Maria. They beat the red team of Big R, Shimizu, Eita, and Keito Ishida. But it was Yusuke Santa Maria that scored the fall. So that was sort of the in-match psychology here, because Santa Maria really took a beating and then, made the big comeback at the end. But Dia's team wins at the end. Dragon Gate's split into 3 main factions right now. There's Team Dragon Gate, which are the younger wrestlers that were trained in the Dragon Gate dojo. Yeah. Team Toryumon, which is the older guys that are like in their early 40s who were trained in the Toryumon gym.
Right, your Yoshinos, your Dois, your Dragon Kids, Ultimo Dragons, those sort of guys.
Yeah, with the return of Ultimo Dragon. And then Red, which is the heel unit. So kind of reminiscent of 11 or 12 with Junction 3 and when it was split, and it was split into 2. The whole roster was split into 2. It was Junction 3 and I can't remember the other one. Not Blood Generation.
Blood Warriors. Was it Blood Warrior? I think it was Blood Warriors, and I forget the other one, unfortunately.
Poor Case Low and Mike Spears.
I know. I'm sorry, guys.
Right. Unbelievable. But it's reminiscent of that, because at that time the whole roster was split into 2. Now the roster's split into 3. So that's kind of what's going on, which actually makes it easy to follow if you're jumping in. Because you don't have 19 different units running around. It's a pretty easy story. Watching everything through over the last couple of days, I will say that the Red stuff with all the interference gets real old real fast.
Yeah, it's good heat, but it's also like when you see it on a show and it happens like 6 times, it drags down a little bit.
You know what Red is? Red is like Bullet Club in the sense that you're either over it and it's just the most annoying thing ever, or for whatever reason you're still able to tolerate it, but it's certainly become a crutch where, Jado is going to hit somebody with that fucking kendo stick, and you just know that Red is going to loosely hold the referee in the corner. And the other problem with Red's matches is every single one of them starts with a crowd brawl, which you didn't have on this show because there was no crowd.
Because they did for a second. They did a little bit of crowd brawling.
Rich, if you go back and watch some of the stuff, every fucking Red match starts with a crowd brawl. And it's like, I have all the time in the world on my hands, and I'm still fast forwarding. It's like I can't sit through these crowd brawls. But so that gets a little bit old. I got to tell you, though, you got to go back, and you obviously have the time. I'm talking to you and the listeners. You got to go back and watch Doi's title defenses. His title defense against KZ on February 7th is fucking awesome. This KZ, let me tell you.
I've seen that match, so I can talk to you
about
it. Yeah, saw that one.
Oh, great. I didn't know you saw it. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I was ruled. I mean, KZ, and he had the same kind of match against Pac. Like, he's just so... I never thought that this guy, who I thought he would forever be like the number 6 heel in whatever shitty heel unit happened to exist at the time. Because that's what he was for so many years, right? And he just got into great shape. Or maybe he was always in shape. He was always wearing those jumpsuits. But he got into shape, and he has become, and I don't say this lightly or with any hyperbole, one of the best underdog babyface wrestlers in the world.
Yeah.
Is that too strong?
No, not at all. Especially on those February matches, like the Pac one and this one, where it's like the crowd is just the best underdog, the best like fight from the bottom guy is when the entire crowd 100% universally just wants this dude to win so badly, and every near fall is like life and death to this crowd, and that's to his credit. He's able to get the crowd to do that as well, and yeah, watching this one, I like the Pac one a little bit better. I thought that was a better overall match, but this is still a tremendous a match, this one from February with Doi and KZ. I mean, really, really good stuff there. And, Doi eventually just puts him away, and it's done in such a tragic way, too, where it's like, wow, he was so close. Like, you knew he wasn't going to do it, but you kind of want him to do it. You wanted them to just say, you know what, fuck it, KZ, you're winning the title tonight. You want him to do it, and then when he didn't happen, it was like this, like, you just got so... You knew the inevitability, and the inevitability is what hurt you so much, because you got sucked in.
That's what makes him such a great... underdog babyface, is that ability to just suck you into the match like that. So that Pac match was February 2019, if people want to go back and watch that one. That was one of my early front runners for, high level match of the year. I mean, that it was really a great match. But this one too, I mean, KZ's work is just, man, he's just so good. And Doi is like the perfect kind of opponent for this scenario. And Doi's not even really a heel because, he's part of Team Toryumon. Mm-hmm. And it's like really Red are the heels. But in a scenario like this, it's kind of a heel babyface dynamic because you're clearly, as a fan, supposed to be rooting for KZ. So, and Doi, as we know, when Doi works heel, he's one of the best heels in the business. I mean, he's not outwardly working heel in this match, but there's little heel things. And he's clearly, with all that experience of working as a heel, he knows he's working from the top here, is my point. And it's really an excellent match. And then he had a defense against Susumu Yokozuka, I think on the 3-1 show.
It was 3-1, yeah.
Now, that wasn't as good as the KZ match. And it was more story heavy and all that. But let me tell you, Susumu is one of the best wrestlers in the world this year. Between the All Japan Junior stuff with that tournament and his first couple defenses there, and this match here, like he's not blowing the doors off with like 4 3/4 star matches, but he's going out there and just putting in the perfect performance. That match against the kid in All Japan, the good Italian boy.
Valencia, Giovanni.
Francisco.
Giovanni. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Akira. No, not Valletta.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, Akira. Yeah. I know.
That's the Malta geek. I'm talking about the good Italian boy. Yeah.
Our listeners from Malta are going to be very upset by that. Yeah. No,
Akira Francesca. No, well, I have no beef with Malta. He's the Malta geek, though, because he's from Malta. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is not a shot at Malta. This is a shot at Valletta, who is perfectly fine as long as he's not pushed. But anyway, that's not neither here nor there. The point here is Susumu's match with Akira Francesca was just, it was the epitome of a veteran pro wrestler performance in carrying an inexperienced kid to the perfect match, to the perfect situation. Do you know what I mean by that? And he had the perfect match in the perfect situation with Doi, in that it's like this is why I struggle with match ratings sometimes, because you go out there and do exactly what you're supposed to do, but it doesn't fit the scale. It doesn't fit the 5-star scale. Like Susumu's performance against Francesca was a 5-star performance, but I can't call it a fucking 5-star match, you know? And that's what's kind of annoying about the star scale and why it bothers me sometimes. But Doi, I was very skeptical of him beating Ben K. I'm like, this might be a little early to be beating Ben K. But I'm totally on board because his title reign has been fantastic. He's carrying himself as an ace. Sometimes that's a problem for Doi. I like him better as a heel, but he's carrying himself as an ace. He sort of has that gravitas as a veteran guy who you respect in the position as champion, right? And Ben K hasn't been hurt at all. He came out after he lost the title and had that, I think he had a time limit draw with Strong Machine J. And then since then, and I get that, he's in a funk, he just lost his title. Since then, he's booked strongly in these matches. Yeah. He's picking up pinfalls. He looks like $1 million, and he's been established at the championship level, which is important. And you can go back to him at any time. So I was a little weary of Doi beating him for the title, but it has all worked out in the end. And I think Dragon Gate, after watching all of it, the tag tournament was a good little tournament. No, nothing to knock your socks off, but a lot of good little matches. Doi's a good champion. Ben K is fine. Dragon Diaz getting a great push and looks great too, by the way. I mean, he's really wrestled well in all of these matches that I've seen. And man, I've even really enjoyed like the little 5-minute exhibition matches with Martin Kirby. But obviously since then,
I don't get
retired.
too excited about those, unfortunately.
Yeah, but he came in and was starting at the bottom, and having these exhibition matches against guys like Super Sisha and people at that level. And those were nice little, fun little 5-minute matches to open the shows.
I love Okuda, man. That dude is such a change of pace in Dragon. I fucking love him. Just a total badass. And aligning him with Ben K, that team fucking rocks, man. I could watch that team wrestle all. That's just two badasses, two guys that just want to beat the fuck out of you. And it's really cool because it's just a juxtaposition to a lot of other stuff that people think that Dragon Gate is or whatever, rightly or wrongly. But those guys are so much just like, yeah, that's what I want. And I love that they're like, teaming together and that they're kind of the guys that are sort of emerging from the Team Dragon Gate too. So yeah, I'm all in on that. And so the Doi thing, I also was kind of like, Doi, really? Why are we going back to Doi here? But it helps establish that Team Toryumon as well. So now there's something for the Team Dragon Gate to go to kind of fight for. Okay, well, the guys who've been around here forever, they're still around here, and hell, one of the lead guys in that team, he has the title now. So you know what? We want it. Get out of our way. Like you're gonna lose and go away, guys. You guys are old and we can handle this. We don't need you guys hanging around anymore. And it's gonna be a cool little story to tell when Yoshino obviously goes away because he has to retire, and Doi loses the title, and that'll be a great story to tell that like Team Dragon Gate has finally now put Team Toryumon in the rear view mirror in some way, shape, or form. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, and it's and they're pushing Dia and Kaito Ishida is the Brave Gate champ, and they're doing a nice job with him. And Ben K, Dia, and Strong Machine J just won the Triangle titles on the show. Was that from Osaka on the 29th of February? I want to say.
Let me find out exactly what that was here. I have the page open right now. I can give that to you in a second. That was the 29th was Osaka. Yeah, they had 2 nights in Osaka, the 29th and the 1st, March the 1st.
Yeah, I just watched all this shit, so I should remember where these matches were. Did you know that Shingo Takagi is still the Oware?
I did actually, literally, just a second I noticed that, which is fantastic. I'm surprised he hasn't been stripped, but he's 751 days going strong. So.
Yes.
Man, which somebody should do, I'm sure somebody has, but somebody should do the lineal Oware Gates Championship, because that's probably gone in all different directions.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, we got time. Someone should do it.
Right, yeah, find out, because Shingo won it. March 6th, 2018. So
You're kind of breaking the rules of the title, though, if you just do who's beating who, because it's like who gets over more with the comment.
right.
So it's like, but if someone wants to have some fun with that, they're more than welcome to do so. But yeah, I've really, I say it every time. You don't watch Dragon Gate for
people
a
are
while.
gonna get mad. People are gonna get mad at you, man. You can't.
It's like an old girlfriend. It's an old girlfriend, Rich, the one you never should have broke up with.
But you always break up with her.
You reconnect, and you're like, man, this was the one, right? Why? I watch this. I like it. We get along, And then, I probably won't watch Dragon Gate again until fucking November. And then we'll be doing this segment again in November, and I'm going to bring up this same anecdote. How many times have I brought up this anecdote?
At least 9 times at this point.
I've been doing this since 2014. Since 2014, I've been saying, Dragon Gate's that old friend, that old girlfriend you never should have broke up with. But it's true, And you binge watch it, and at no point did I get bored. And the other thing with Dragon Gate is I'm like, all right, I got 6 shows to watch, so I'm going to skip around liberally. But then I'm like, no, I want to watch the next match. And I end up watching all of it anyway because it's all pretty good, But strongly recommend the Doi matches. Strongly recommend some of the Triangle Gate stuff. I'm not a big fan of the Twin Gate stuff. It's Hulk and Kazuma Sakamoto now as the champions. Very interference heavy, very red heavy. Haven't been able to get into that.
Well, I don't really even like those 2 guys. I mean, those are 2 guys that I really do not like on the roster. I've been anti-Hulk for years and years and years, and Sakamoto really kind of stinks. So,
well, and now Hulk is broken down too. But the thing with Hulk, he can still deliver those kicks that look like they're knocking dudes out, because they probably are. But other than that, he's broken down. And Kazuma Sakamoto is just a scummer, an indie scummer. So yeah, I haven't really been into that. But everything else is clicking pretty well. For the company. You know what else I thought was funny on the YouTube show was Kai. Kai has been working a lot of Dragon Gate. And Larry Dallas is like, he's the biggest man on the roster. He's a big man, this Kai. And it's true, but he's not even a big man.
He's like 6'1". He's like 6'1", 225.
If that.
I don't know what he is.
Would it stun you if Kai is 5'10"?
No. Per cage match, he's 5'10", 220.
Yeah, but Larry Dallas is just going off on how big this guy is, and he presents a lot of trouble for opponents.
Exactly my height and my weight, so that's
But it's not inaccurate,
right?
Because a lot of the guys on this roster are 5'5", right? So he looks like a fucking monster in there. So I thought that was funny too. And then Jai too with Strong Machine Jay got pulled off the show. And he's like, they had to re-oil the machinery underneath the hood. And it's that's the kind of shit he used to write on the site, on the iHeart Dragon Gate site. And it's it kind of reminded me of that, the gimmick is the gimmick. Even though it's ridiculous that we're saying that this man is a machine, a literal machine, you stick to the gimmick, And it's I like that kind of
It's all about the universe. Yeah, it's all about the universe here.
It's all about the universe. That's all that matters, But yeah, so that's dry. You got anything else on the show itself that you did see?
No. So what I would say is, I mentioned before, if you're a big Dragon Gate fan, you might and most of them listen to this either have already seen it already or don't have to wait for us to tell you one way or another. But I will say one of the things that's awesome is watch the beginning of the show too, because the guys come out and if you've never seen Dragon Gate before, or you skip through the beginning of Dragon Gate, they always choose a fan to ring the bell. They find some kid in the audience that's really enthusiastic, and that's the one that rings the bell or whatever. Well, there's no kids obviously because it's just the fans. So what they do is they're going around the ring, and you got Don Fuji being like, me, choose me. It's just incredible. Yeah. It's great stuff. And it's because they're all, and again, it's all about the universe again. They all know they're in on the joke, and it's kind of fun in that same sense. So eventually they choose Gamma, who's just kind of acting like he's this most he's never seen wrestling before, he's not the guy that they all know he is. So they get him in the ring there, and he's talking about his favorite wrestlers and his favorite wrestling matches or whatever. He plays it up so well. It's just so funny. You don't know what they're saying. Thankfully there's a guy who translates there, but you don't even need to know what they're saying. It's just the raw enthusiasm. It's just a bunch of buddies coming together and just having a wrestling show, and it's and sometimes it's really cool, and times like this especially, it's really, really fun that guys can at least do that, have a little bit of fun, get their minds off things for a few hours. and do that. But it's all about the universe, like we'll say. And I'll bear the U.S. Indies for doing bullshit like this all the time too. But on like times like this, it's like hard to get really upset about anything because it's like, who cares?
So we're telling everybody to go watch this show, and then in the very first match, they're going to see Ho Ho Lun and Punch Tamanaga.
Well,
and,
yeah.
And they're going to be like, what the fuck? Why are you making me watch this shit?
Stick with it.
It's the opener. It wasn't that bad anyway. You know, Jimmy's back. So, looking ripped, Jimmy. Huh?
Yeah, Jimmy's been working out. Jimmy has worked out for sure. Yeah.
He's like Humberto Carrillo's less good-looking little brother now. right? Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm watching Jimmy. I'm like, this guy's like Humberto Carrillo's little brother. Like, Humberto Carrillo is just bringing home fucking smoke shows, right, from school. And Jimmy's like, you know, Jimmy's a little late to develop. But it's like they resemble each other just enough, but it's clear that the one sibling got all the good genes.
Right.
That's what it reminds me of. And we all knew kids on our block like that growing up. You know, you got the one house where all the brothers are like good looking, and they in succession, they're the high school quarterback too. Like,
yeah, every single time. Yeah. We had a family that they ran they were my school's quarterbacks for like 12 years.
Yeah.
Like everybody had an Edwards as their quarterback at my school. It was every year. Right. And then one of them is actually a Ram. David Edwards from the Rams. Big dude.
David Edwards. That's David Edwards.
He's a lineman, I believe.
Oh, I was thinking quarterback. I'm like, Rich,
no. He moved. He gained weight in college. He gained a lot of weight.
Yeah. I'm like, we never had a quarterback named David Edwards. But yeah, that's everyone has a family like that in their town.
Well, he's that family. Yeah, he's a part of that family. So
yeah, where they're like every high school quarterback comes from the same house, you know, and their father is like, you know, running drills in the backyard, and they all bang the hottest cheerleader, and they're all the fucking homecoming king. And then you have the house on your block where like one brother's really good looking and charismatic and is constantly getting laid. And then the little brother, and it's always the little brother, unfortunately. The little brother is like, he tries to copy the big brother, but he just doesn't have the same charisma, and he just doesn't have the same looks. And it's just, you know, it doesn't work out. That's Jimmy. I feel like I'm burying Jimmy, but I didn't mean to bury Jimmy.
Right, it's fine.
You
know, he's probably going to end up. He's going to end up probably with a better job, and like, yeah, it won't be the hottest girl, but you know, they'll have a good family and 3 kids and a nice house, and you know, maybe not have as much fun along the way, but you know, he'll end up. You know,
okay. You're right. But the problem here is I'm comparing him to Humberto Carrillo with those fucking dimples. Anyone's going to look bad.
Right.
What are you going to do? I mean, you know, it's a horrible comparison. It's just you're born into the wrong family, dude. You know. But yeah, Jimmy's back. But yeah, that's your Dragon Gate segment. We got it in.
There it is. Got it in. Yeah, even with the customary don't break up with her segment.
I gotta. You know, I don't mean to either. Like I always say to myself, I hit the pillow at night. I'm like, all right, got a big Flagship tomorrow. I'm going. Do you go through the Flagship in your head?
Oh yeah, of course, all the time. Yeah, I rehearse it in the shower, and I'm out. Yeah,
in the shower, absolutely. You rehearse it in bed before you fall asleep, and you rehearse it in the shower. That's a given, right? You got to get those rants down. And then you ever like do the Flagship and you're like, man, I fucked up. Man.
Right. Nothing that I wanted to do. I said nothing that I wanted to say.
If I just would have said it the way I said it in the shower, man, that would have been perfect, but I fucked it up. A lot of times I do this too. Like I'm going through what I want to say, and then I say, you know what, Joe, stop, because you're going to do it perfect in your head, and you're going to fuck it up on the show. So just do it fresh on the show, and you're going to get it perfect, because you're never going to replicate this perfection.
Right, but then you forget.
And then I forget, yeah, you know. So that always happens. But where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So I didn't even want to do the Dragon Gate is your ex-girlfriend, but it always just fucking comes up. I don't know. What would be a Dragon Gate segment without it, though? The listeners demand it, honestly.
Exactly. Right.
What do we got? What's left?
All Japan Dream Power Series 2020. We got a new Triple Crown champion. Suwama defeats Kento Miyahara. Joe, did you see this coming?
I need a timestamp here so I know.
You have 15 minutes.
All right. I talked a lot about this on the Intelligentsia, patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. Rich, people want to know what you think about this, and we're short on time, so go.
All right, so I really liked the match. I thought it was tremendous pro wrestling. I cannot believe that it's 31 minutes long. It felt like 12 minutes to me. I didn't believe it when I saw that it was 31 minutes. I actually went back and rewatched half the match just to say, okay, let me time it in my head. Was this actually 15 minutes of time that elapsed? And it was. I thought this was the best I've seen Suwama wrestle in years and years and years and years. And Kento Miyahara, I mean, Jesus Christ, what do you say about this guy at this point? He is literally one of the greatest wrestlers going right now. He's staking a claim to being an all-time great, like a generationally great wrestler. As well, and really largely he's just getting ready, barring some injuries or anything happening. Like, he's still got years ahead of him, so I can't wait to see where this guy goes over the next few years. But no, I thought a tremendous pro wrestling match. Suwama getting the win was a bit of a shock, but the way that they built it up, you saw it coming. About 2 minutes left in the match, you see that he's got Kento on the ropes, and you're like, okay. But Kento has done that before, where like guys have him on the ropes and he gets out of it. But you had a different feeling here on this match. I even went into it unspoiled, and there was just a feeling where I'm like, man, Suwama gonna win this match? Like, I feel like he's gonna win this match, and he did. He put him away. He won. It wasn't a really, like, I don't want to call it a definitive win, but it was kind of like Suwama beat this guy. You know what I mean? It wasn't like Kento fucked up or did something wrong or anything. Like, Suwama just was the better man on that night, beat him, and it's really interesting too, because so this breaks up a 519-day reign from Kento Miyahara, started in October 2018 all the way up until the 23rd of March 2020 here. A little boring that it went to Suwama. Like, we'll talk about that. Like, I'm kind of over Suwama largely. He's had a few different reigns, as Triple Crown champion, and
7.
Ugh, God. Is it really 7? Oh, I'm looking at it now. It is 7. Jesus Christ.
7, all-time record holder.
God, yeah. So that's a little rough.
Now, look, I know it's mostly been dark days and everything, but he does not feel like a guy who was worthy of 7 Triple Crown title reigns, right?
Right, because it's going to put him in like this
rarefied air,
but he's not. Like, he's just not. He's nowhere near where those other guys are.
Listen, he's a nice little upper mid-card wrestler. Don't get me wrong. And I get why he was champion that many times, because who else were they going to turn to a lot of those times? I feel like we're being a little too hard on him, but at the same time, in almost any other era, he wouldn't be a 7-time champ. But go ahead.
Right, and then there's also this issue too with All Japan is I'm gonna go back all the way to January 2016. Suwama's the champion, title's vacated. Kento Miyahara beats him. Suji Ishikawa beats Kento Miyahara. Kento Miyahara wins it from Suji Ishikawa. Kento Miyahara loses it to Suwama. Joe Doring beats Suwama to win it. Kento Miyahara beats Joe Doring. Zeus has it briefly. Kento Miyahara, Suwama. I've said a lot of names there, and many of them are Suwama and Kento Miyahara, which is unfortunate. This is the issue where I don't necessarily hate that Suwama won the title. I just hate that it's like Suwama again. You know what I mean? It's him again. That's the one that beats Kento. And the problem that I have with this as well, a match I loved. Great match. Go out of your way to watch it. One of the better matches I've seen all year. Absolutely a must watch for 2020. My worry is we're right kind of back to what we've seen for a while with All Japan, with Suwama, with Kento. And my worry isn't necessarily who's going to win the title from Suwama. There's, you mentioned Jake Lee is a possibility. Maybe Kento wins it back. Whoever it's going to be. It's probably Jake Lee, whatever. Regardless, as we know at the end of the day, it's probably going to go back to Kento Miyahara. And we just had this all-time great 500-day reign with Kento Miyahara. And there was like, oh, he was going to break some records. He was going to maybe win the most successful defenses or whatever. Like, the fact is, this has to be his charter reign now, 500 days. You can't go back and have this guy have another long title reign, right?
As far as the reigns go, look, he's going to break the record for most total defenses because he's only one away. And he's going to win the title probably multiple more times. He's only like 30 or something, unless he leaves the company. As far as the other one, that a lot of people are surprised because they thought, he did that. That's what they were doing with this reign, was the most successful defenses in a single title reign. But see, I don't know if they necessarily care or even were thinking about that. I think that's something that fans think about. Now, when the Okada thing, that was deliberate. This one, I don't know if the idea was to tease people into thinking he would do it and then have him come up short so he can do it later. I think that's what people think, and I get why they're thinking that, but I'm not so sure.
Okay.
In the room they're thinking about that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think this is more, we have plateaued with this guy as champion, which is absolutely the case. Last year they plateaued. He's taking us as far as he can take us. It's time to finally attempt to get one of these other guys over. And I don't think he's going to win it back from Suwama. The easiest thing to do would be to have Miyahara win Champion Carnival and then beat Suwama, right? It's a pretty simple story. But the fact that Jake Lee lost those All-Asia tag team titles one match earlier, to me is a giant tip-off that Jake Lee is going to win the Champion Carnival and Jake Lee is going to beat Suwama, because that accomplishes a bunch of different things. It establishes Jake Lee as a Triple Crown winner and caliber guy. Jake Lee wins a Champion Carnival. He wins the Triple Crown. But Jake Lee still has that thing hanging over his head where he hasn't beaten Kento.
Right. He beats Suwama for the title, which is a different story altogether.
Suwama. So you don't want to burn off all three. You don't want to burn off the Carnival win, the Triple Crown win, and the Kento win all in one shot. So you save the Kento one by getting the title off of Kento. You also create a misdirection because everyone thinks Kento is going to win Champion Carnival, right? So to me, that's what seems to be the path here. Lee beats Suwama. Kento wins it from Lee. And now we have a whole new story. All right. Well, Lee is now a former champ, and he still has to get over the hump and win this title from Kento. So you still have a story there. I think that's the thought process more than let's get it off. Let's tease Kento breaking this record and then have him break it again later. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think he'll even threaten it again. I honestly don't think they're thinking about that. So I don't know. That's my take. Let me ask you, what do you think the immediate path is, and what do you think the immediate path should be? Because those could be two different answers.
Right. And I guess that's one of my other issues, too, is I don't really know what you do in this company right now. I mean...
And remember, Nomura with the neck. You got to take him out of the equation.
Right. And that would have been my guy that I probably would have gone with. But that's out. I guess you got to go with... That's why, like... Man, they're in a tough spot here. They're really, really in a tough spot. And it's been years and years and years of not getting those next guys ready, those next guys not being ready, whatever it is, bad luck, whatever you want to call it. But they're really down to, like, you have Kento Miyahara, you have Suwama, you have Jake Lee. I mean, who else can really...
I'll tell you who, okay.
Feasibly, who else you got?
You got Jake Lee and Nomura were the two.
Yeah.
Nomura's got the neck.
Right, where he's I would go, by the way, I would have done Nomura. I would have done build up this entire year for him. But if that's not a possibility, then that's not a possibility.
Jake Lee, to me, the ship has sailed. Even if he does win it, I don't think he has the necessary charisma, but they may not be thinking that way. And then you've got your next, Yuma Aoyagi, who just got the title shot after the turn.
Right.
But his sort of thing is just starting, okay? Ayato Yoshida is the other one. Not your wrestler, okay? 2AW, I get it. But they've done with Tsuji Ishikawa before and things like that, so it's not out of the question. Mm-hmm. But to me, Ayato Yoshida is also on that Aoyagi level. To me, Ayato Yoshida has more upside than any of these guys.
Yeah, I agree.
I look at him and I see a fucking star. I see dollar signs when I look at Ayato Yoshida. He has everything. And New Japan knew it. And believe me, if that relationship didn't fall apart with 2AW because of the Taka stuff, because Taka had to, go cheat on his wife or whatever the fuck, he'd still be in New Japan. And Ayato Yoshida and Shota Umino would be generational rivals in that company at the top of the card. I wrote about it in the book 2 years in a row. You saw that that's what they were doing. If you understand Gato, you understand that that's what he was doing.
Right.
And I see dollar signs with that guy, and he has fallen into All Japan's lap because of politics. And that's the guy I think that they should be slowly pushing the way that they slowly pushed Miyahara 5 years ago. That'd be my guy. And then the other guy, the third guy, is Yusuke Okada, who's a junior now, but I could see him becoming a heavyweight.
Yeah, there's time. That's not immediate. That's like a guy you put on the whiteboard and say, okay, let's get to this guy if we can. For sure, I agree with it.
The problem is, but here's the thing. I think the Jake Lee Nomura wave of guys are now a no-go because I don't believe Lee is charismatic enough, and I think Nomura is toast.
Right.
At least for the foreseeable future. So I think you got to start going to that next level now. I liked what I saw from Aoyagi in that match. I know people didn't love the match, but Aoyagi's performance, that cocky pin attempt at the end, I like what I saw.
Yeah, he's good. It's just like, is that going to keep them in business? And I think that's, I guess, what they're the issue with All Japan right now is like, who do we have that's actually, and that's my worry about this Kento Miyahara thing, is that I am so worried that, and I'm not saying that I'm upset that I'm going to get to see great Kento Miyahara main events or whatever. The fear that I have is that whatever you're saying is going to happen. Jake Lee beats Suwama, whatever, wins it, you know, if that scenario plays out, I know inevitably the 30-year-old Kento Miyahara, he's going to win this title again. And do we go down the, Kento Miyahara has the title for 2 years thing again? Which is fine, it's whatever, but we've seen that, like, it's got a shelf life to it, and it's, to me, it's a little boring, because I'm like, all right, what's next? What's the next story? What are we doing new? Like,
listen, you're not alone, because again, business has plateaued.
Right.
Their fan base is bored with it. Business hasn't. I mean,
at 30 years old, this guy he holds 2 of the top 5 longest and most successful defenses of this title ever.
And listen, none of this is his fault. They haven't been able to build rivals.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. That's my fear, is that they're going to give him the title back when the Jake Lee thing inevitably doesn't work or whatever, or Suwama gets hurt or something like that. It's right back to Kento. And then, like, isn't it just easy to say, you know what? Fuck, Kento, just hold the title for 2 years again. Whatever, man. We'll figure it out. We'll try to build guys underneath again, like they've done.
Yeah,
that's the easy thing to go to, because like you're saying, you could shock the world. And okay, it's this guy that you never thought in the world was going to win. But what if, you know, people don't respond attendance-wise? Do you go with the okay, we're not cratering, but we're fine, we're whatever with Kento, or do you say fuck it, let's take a risk of all risks and see what happens, with the idea that maybe it doesn't work, maybe it falls on its face if, you know, Yumiyagi just comes out of nowhere and wins this title or whatever, you know, like.
I'm going to put it to you this way: when Miyahara was on the come up and they were clearly building him for the spot, we knew it was going to work. We're like, this is the guy. Remember?
Right.
We're like, this is so clearly the guy. The only dude I feel that about, I have that same internal feeling about Ayato Yoshida. I really do. I feel like that is the guy. But they are not. I don't see, now it's very early because they just started using them. But I don't see them planting those seeds. We saw them planting the seeds with Miyahara. Who we see them planting seeds with are Jake Lee and Nomura. Jake Lee is not going to work.
No,
I am so off.
I can't believe there's people that think that that's going to work again when it hasn't worked.
It just isn't it.
The last 7 times they've tried, like it's so boring. It's like, okay, fine, go to it. You can see
guy.
He's a fucking dud. He's a dud. He goes out there and he's a goddamn dud. So
it's not going to magically click with him. You know, he just doesn't have the charisma or the fire. You know, Nomura might have. He needed work too, but you can't even talk about him now. You know, but Yoshida, man, he just jumps off the page, especially here where he can wear his own gear and stuff. He jumped off the page in New Japan wearing young boy gear, where he wasn't allowed to be charismatic. You know, I'm telling you, they're in New Japan, they're trying to think of ways to get that guy back. I'm telling you, this guy is money. I am so confident in that. You know, so that'd be my guy. I'd be building underneath right now. But again, he's not your guy, and it's tricky.
It is tough,
because he can get yanked away the same way he got yanked away from New Japan. And it's just a shame how it works there, because he does not belong in that dopey little company where he has no future.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows what's going to happen over the next. Maybe it doesn't exist anymore after a little while.
Yeah.
Not that I want anybody to go out of business or lose money or whatever, but.
You know, their champion is Yuji Okabayashi now.
I saw that. Yeah, he won it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations to Yuji Okabayashi for winning the coveted 2 AEW championships. So.
Yay! I'm sure he'll have.
Did he even bring it home? Did he just leave it at the arena? He didn't put that one.
I mean,
he didn't even bring that out of the building with him.
When you have a chance to do Yuji Okabayashi versus Dinosaur Takuma, you got to do it, right? You can't leave that money on the table.
You think he got through the curtain and then just dropped the title and said, "All right, I'll see you guys whenever."
I mean, honestly, he's picking up gigs. I mean, you know, the work's about to run out. You know, I don't blame the guy. But yeah, that's kind of look. I feel like the writing's on the wall for this Jake Lee thing, but. You know, that's just my speculation. It just looks like a path. I mean, did you watch that tag title, the Yankee 2 Kenju coming in?
I did. Yeah.
It was all right. It was a nice. Fine. You know what I think it was? It was like a good Raw match. When there's like a good Raw match, that's what that was. It was a nice little TV match. So Kodaka and Miyamoto coming in as outsiders to win those belts, and Susumu Yokozuka, you know, he beats Izanagi. You do what you can with an Izanagi. You know, you're not going to set the world on fire in a match like that. And, you know, he had to overcome the interference and everything. Again, those 2 matches were kind of like nice little TV matches is what I would call them. And then the Triple Crown match was fucking phenomenal. I mean, Kento Miyahara, I know I sound like a broken record, but every time this guy wrestles, he's better than the last time he wrestled. He was so good in this match. Nobody manipulates crowd emotions and controls a crowd like he does. Nobody. And he is so far and away the best wrestler on this roster that there isn't even a number 2. The gap is so wide between Miyahara and the next best wrestler in this company. And it's almost not even an insult. I'm not even burying the rest of the roster. I'm putting him over. He's just so much better than everybody on this roster. There's just a different vibe when he's in the ring. And he's just great. This is just phenomenal performance, from facial expressions to mannerisms to just bell-to-bell physicality to match structure. And that crowd, by the end of this match, was just totally behind Suwama knocking this guy off. And I like the abruptness of the finish.
Yeah.
They didn't do that crazy fucking Puro closing stretch. It wasn't like but at the same time, it wasn't like just a flash finish either. It was just
you knew 2 minutes, like with the last 2 minutes, you're like, fuck, this dude's putting him away. He's putting him away. He's going to beat him. And then he just beats him. And you're like, all right, cool. Like, you see it coming, you know what I mean? In a good way. Like, you could tell that he's got him on the ropes and he just needs to finish him off. And then you see that he's going to do it. And it's cool in that sense, where it's a definitive, like, obvious win, but it's not like, it's not like you bury. Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, you got to watch it to understand what we're saying here.
Yeah. And Kento, I mean, if you told me he was the best wrestler in the world, I'm not arguing with you. That's not an argument I'd have. Even if I thought about it and didn't agree, I mean, he's great. You know, and it's just the little things and the big things. He's great at everything. He's the total package. He's a joy to watch. And this was one of the best title reigns I've ever seen. Pantheon level. Top 10 title reign I've ever seen, probably higher. How about that as he ends his title reign?
Yeah,
Have you thought about
it's
that?
there. Yeah, it's fucking there, man. It's an all-timer for sure.
And there's geeks who were screaming for it to end. Can you believe that shit? Like this stop the Kento stuff?
Yeah, he's bored of him winning.
God, these people are just, what are you doing? You know? Like, what are you watching? But yeah, this is a Pantheon title reign, one of the best I've ever seen in all of wrestling. Maybe that's something to think about as we run out of wrestling, putting together lists like that. You know, and thinking about things like that, to do on the show moving forward. We're going to run out of fucking shows.
Yeah, people are going to stop running here for a bit. Yeah, the next month it's going to be a bloodbath, man. No one's going to be running. So,
anyway, I've got expanded thoughts on all of this behind the paywall, patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. Look for the latest, The Intelligentsia, the most arrogant wrestling show on the planet, where I do a very deep dive on all of this Miyahara stuff. So.
That's it. We're out of time here. So anyway, voicesofwrestling.com for we had some fun stuff planned for the next week or so to get us through this period of weirdness, and the podcasts have continued. So the Voice Wrestling Podcast Network, of course, that continues. Patreon.com/voiceswrestling, as well as voicewrestling.com/Discord as well, our Discord channel, if you want to go there and talk with us. And at Voices Wrestling, if you want to make an Undertaker mention, Joe will block you. So there you go. If you want to get blocked, you
blocked on sight.
So jump in and talk about the Undertaker, and Joe will block you. So there you go. So anyway, for Joe Lanta, I'm Rich Great. We'll see you guys next time on the Voice Wrestling Flagship Podcast. Take care. Alrighty. I will get this guy edited in a few minutes.